there'd been a fire in the Elizabeth Road area of Boston.
Police discovered a woman, early 30s, in a flat on her own, dead.
It was clearly a very violent, cold-blooded killing.
It was scary, not something you expect to happen on your doorstep.
The people of Boston feared that there was a killer at large.
We thought, is this to do with this gang-related thing? They'd just got her. They'd found out where she lived and got her.
In the heart of the Lincolnshire countryside is the thriving market town of Boston.
Boston's a town that's steeped in history. At one stage, it was the second largest port in the UK to Liverpool. You've got such things as the Guildhall.
You got a nice Boston stamp. It's a big church, which is very beautiful architecture. You can see from anywhere. If you get lost, just to look for a Boston stamp.
Because it's rural, you've got plenty of nice open spaces. And then you've got a town with local people in it, local trades.
It was a small village and now it's a town. And they're very lovely people, very laid back. They have a very Bostonian humour about them.
Anybody that comes past, it's always good morning. It's not like city life where they just ignore each other.
No, we'd be sat on the doorstep having a cup of tea. An old woman or someone comes past, you're like, you all right, good morning?
Yeah, you don't know him from Adam, but you just say good morning.
Yeah.
With its surrounding farmland, Boston has long been a draw for those looking for work.
Boston is essentially the vegetable breadbasket of the United Kingdom. About a third of the fresh fruit and vegetable comes from that area in the whole of the UK.
Farmers need, packhouses need X amount of casual labour. Boston doesn't hold that amount of casual labour, so that labour has to come in from elsewhere. And that's always been the case all the way back.
In recent years, the town has been transformed by the arrival of workers from across Europe.
Boston's changed incredibly over the last 20 years with the migration from the European Union. It's had the highest amount of migration for anywhere in the country. The first wave came from Portugal, but gradually as more Eastern European countries came into the EU, it was predominantly Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, and then Poland, and latterly Bulgaria and Romania.
Many European people here. There's lots of factory and field work, jobs around, many cabbages. That's where you got sprouts for Christmas. So we are not that bad.
33-year-old Marina Urte moved to Boston in 2007 to start a new life for herself.
Marina came from Latvia. She found work at a fruit packaging plant, and I think she was fairly popular there and well-liked.
She was more crazier than me. No, she was a lovely girl. She was beautiful, quite popular. When she started her work, she'd been offered higher position than other people. She was like a leader.
She was known as being quite frank and quite honest, but also a hard worker.
She wants jobs done right. She would tell you where to go, what to do and how to do. And if obviously somebody was doing something wrong, she wouldn't be quiet. Quite perfectionist.
We were working together in the same factories and we would go out partying sometimes, but I would say most of our time we would spend at the job. Me and Marina, we were similar in terms of career progression and temperament and wanting to improve, earn more money and create more comfortable life for us.
Marina had settled into Boston, and with a steady job and a new group of friends, she met 33-year-old Gytis Griskavikas.
She met Gytis in 2009. He came from Lithuania.
He used to work with us at the factory as well. He was a very nice, intelligent guy, very friendly, very caring. And I just remember that he turned up at our door, taking her out somewhere. They were really happy, they were really in love.
And they married quite quickly, I think, in 2010.
They have a nice wedding, and she have a nice dress, and it was like a fairy tale, like a big love story. They loved each other, and that was really in love and happy.
He was flying and he had all the sparks in his eyes, and Marina, so yeah, they were in love.
And it wasn't long before Marina and Gytis decided to start a family together. In November 2010, Marina gave birth to their baby daughter.
She was very good mommy. She adored her little girl. She was always calling her little princess, always.
Gytis, likewise, was also a good husband and a good dad. They were a normal, happy family.
Sadly, the relationship between Marina and Gytis didn't last. But they both agreed to raise their daughter together whilst living separately. And as Marina continued to impress at her job, she began to think big for her future.
She was always taking care of flowers, and she always dreamed to have some little shop with many different kinds, and she would sell them for special occasions like weddings or big birthdays.
But in the summer of 2016, everything changes when one of Marina's neighbours calls an emergency engineer, believing there's been a gas leak.
The next door neighbour smelt something under the stairs.
But when the engineer arrives, he suspects the smell is coming from Marina's flat and looks through her letterbox. They spot a smouldering fire and call the fire brigade immediately.
Fire rescue.
Oh, hello. I've been called to the downstairs flat, but we can smell smoke from upstairs, and there's fire damage to the stairs.
Right, okay.
I remember learning there'd been a fire in the Elizabeth Road area of Boston. I don't think there was any obvious sign of a fire from outside, but certainly the neighbours were aware that it had been a fire.
The lady from downstairs thinks there'll be somebody inside upstairs, but we can't get up the stairs because they're too damaged.
Okay, we have got fire crews on the way to it, okay.
Firefighters force their way into the flat and put out the smouldering fire, whilst checking if anyone is home. At first it appears empty, but as the crew enter the bathroom, they make a shocking discovery.
They find a woman, early 30s, in a flat on her own, dead. Obviously by strange circumstances, in a bath, no water in the bath, covered in soot, with a hose on top of her. You know, you think, good gracious, you know, how on earth has this happened?
Police are immediately called to the scene.
I want to know what the cause of death is roughly at that stage. So is it a homicide? Is it suspicious? I mean, just because a body's been found in the bath doesn't necessarily mean it's suspicious. It could have been an accidental fire or something like that.
Police quickly establish that the dead woman is Marina Ertey. It becomes obvious she has been brutally attacked, with horrific injuries to her face and body. A murder investigation is immediately launched and officers secure the scene.
It's all about scene preservation. The scene can tell you a phenomenal amount, and the last thing that you need is that scene corrupting.
News of Marina's death quickly spreads through the street.
We all gets moved out of the flat, and then next hour or so, turns out she's been murdered in a battle. We never ever thought for a second that there was a murder. We just generally thought there was a fire. Not something you expect to happen on your doorstep. It's just crazy.
In the quaint market town of Boston, Lincolnshire, the usual tranquility has been disturbed by the sirens of fire engines, and neighbours on Elizabeth Road are stunned to learn that not only was the fire set deliberately, but that 33-year-old Marina Ertey has been brutally murdered.
The residents were shocked to learn that it was a murder because initially, like everyone else, they thought it was a fire.
Everybody was in shock. You just didn't know how to get your head around it.
There was always a police car parked just there on the side.
Constant flashes, weren't
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Forensic cameras, it was just unreal, wasn't it?
It's just not what we expected at all.
It is a quiet area. So for something like this just happened, like, I think it did shake everybody up, to be honest.
When a crime like that hits Boston, it's very painful to hear. Some Bostonian people, they do feel afraid, they feel afraid going out. It just brings this grey shadow over your community.
As Marina has been senselessly attacked in her home for no apparent reason, the community is on high alert.
The people of Boston feared that there was a killer at large.
It was scary. There was always that worry of somebody coming back. They could have potentially took more lives.
It isn't long before Marina's family and friends learn of the brutal attack on their loved one.
Someone texted me saying that the fire brigade and police is there, so she's been killed.
I was in shock. I couldn't believe. It was my birthday, so obviously from very high happiness I went in deep sadness and proper shock. I thought, what? Is that really possible?
With a murder investigation underway, police need to establish a timeline of Marina's last known movements.
There's all sorts of inquiries that need to be made. We would have people immediately looking for CCTV in the area. We'd have people very, very quickly knocking on doors to find out who's been seen in the area, who hasn't. We need to find out when this happened, because that's the starting point, isn't it? When was she last seen, and who was she last seen by? Also, where she worked, who she would normally work with, when should she have been in at work last?
Officers speak to Marina's colleagues at the fruit packing factory where she worked and narrow the time frame on her last known movements.
Police discovered Marina hadn't turned in for work 5 o'clock that morning. So clearly, whatever had happened before that time. And that's absolutely key part of the investigation.
Back at the scene, police and fire experts examine the cause of the fire and quickly establish it had been purposely set after Marina had died.
The early forensic evidence showed that a fire had been set in the flat, but it didn't take properly, so the house wasn't badly damaged by fire.
The fire didn't really take, I think it was just slow burning. But if they'd done a good job on the fire, it could have just took this whole block. That was scary.
With the fire having been set after the attack, detectives speculate whether Marina's killer had tried to destroy evidence at the scene.
They won't have known if they left any forensic evidence there. They won't have known if they left any fingerprints there. They won't have known for sure that someone didn't see them either going or coming back.
Forensic experts are called in. They need to examine the scene to find any clues that might point to Marina's attacker.
When we got there, it was obvious that I wasn't able to do my job. The reason I couldn't do it is because the fire that was started on the stairs had produced an excessive amount of soot throughout the flat. And the whole flat was covered in a thin layer of soot, which meant you couldn't see the blood. So at that point, after a brief look around, and we did locate some bloodstains, but it was obvious that the extent of that was much more than what we could see. We decided to go home and have a team of people come in and de-soot the scene, and then was to go back after that process has been done.
Forensics must wait until the thick layer of soot is meticulously cleared before they can work. But detectives do manage to question Marina's ex-husband, Gitas. He says he hasn't seen her, but reveals some information which leads investigators to look deeper into Marina's personal life. and they uncover some disturbing connections to some violent people.
Following the ending of her relationship with Gitas in 2015, she'd formed a new relationship. And it was quickly discovered that she had been involved in a very recent trial at Lincoln Crown Court. She had been charged with perverting the course of justice after her new partner was involved in a violent attack on another group of East Europeans.
The man in question is 42-year-old Alexandra Kudryasov.
Alexander, he worked at the same factory as well. Alexander was involved in what's it called, criminal activity and deviant behaviors and everything. He's got quite a rough background.
Police found out that a new boyfriend had recently been sent to prison for 18 years for grievous bodily harm, dreadful attacking involving knives. And Marina herself had been acquitted for conspiracy to pervert the course of justice in providing him with an alibi, only a matter of days before her body was found. Clearly, it was an obvious line of inquiry that her death might be something to do with those circumstances.
Police want to know, was Marina's involvement in a gang dispute anything to do with her death? Could this have been a revenge attack?
One theory that the police would have been exploring is that maybe one members of the group that were the victims would exact revenge on Marina's partner, and the fact that he'd been convicted and was now out of the way meant that, of course, there was no one to protect Marina at the time.
Police explore the possibility Marina had become mixed up with a bad crowd through her relationship with Alexander. The theory of a revenge attack takes hold, and the safety of Marina's friends and family becomes a police priority.
The fact that a group of East European men have been very, very badly injured by another group of East European men, obviously down in Boston, there would have been tensions between the various people involved, the various families.
Clearly, one of the concerns for the police initially was the welfare of the child.
Fists, kicking, or a blunt instrument.
It was clearly a very violent and cold-blooded killing.
And with the scene now cleared of soot from the fire, forensic results arrive, which further paints a horrific picture.
What we found was a large pool of blood in the living room with smears around it, and there were small spots of blood radiating from it, indicating that there's been impacts in that area, probably into Marina herself. I suspect that she's gone into the living room for whatever reason, been hit, gone down almost straight away, and then been assaulted on the floor by punching or kicking or with a blunt instrument.
Forensic results also show bloodied track marks from the living room to the bathroom.
The two track marks is where her heels were in contact with the ground as she's been dragged across the landing and into the bathroom. In the bathroom, there were spatters of blood around the bath and on the floor to indicate that she'd been further assaulted in that area. Her body was found naked in the bath. There was no blood-stained clothing, so when it happened, she was most likely naked. And the pathologist said that Maria had actually been drowned by having the shower head forced into her mouth, and it was that which actually killed her in the end, was the cause of death.
But who could have carried out such an horrific attack? Had Marina become sucked into a gangland dispute and paid the ultimate price for it?
We'd heard that she'd gone to court to do with this gang-related thing.
Yeah.
We thought she'd just got her. They'd found out where she lived and got her.
In the Lincolnshire town of Boston, police are investigating the murder of 33-year-old Marina Ertey, who was found in her own home, beaten and drowned in the bath. Her boyfriend, Alexandra Kudryasov, is in prison, serving an 18-year sentence for a vicious attack during a gangland dispute. Whilst he is ruled out as a suspect, there are suspicions that Marina has been murdered in a gangland revenge attack.
After it happened, we used to see this really spruced up black car coming past. We kept thinking, oh, is this to do with, like, this gang-related thing? That's pretty much everybody's first thoughts, wasn't it?
But police are keeping an open mind.
It's the age-old adage, ABC of investigating. Accept nothing, believe no one, and check absolutely everything. If it was anything to do with the grievous bodily harm trial and Marina being acquitted of conspiracy and almost a revenge attack by perhaps those people that have been the victims in the first place, one would expect it to be almost tit for tat. Revenge is usually about, I'm going to give you what you gave to me. That's what revenge is. Revenge doesn't normally extend to attacking a defenseless woman in her own home, viciously and violently over a prolonged period of time. That, to me, was not a revenge attack.
Police also suspect that the lack of a forced entry points to a different explanation.
That immediately means to me, this is personal. That would be my first thought there. This is not a random attack. This isn't a burglary gone wrong or anything like that. This is personal, for some reason or other. Whoever did this to Marina knew her, and Marina knew them and had let them in the house.
With this latest theory, police look closely at Marina's inner circle.
One of the key elements is always to find out who saw the victim alive last.
Police would have been looking to question those who were closely connected to Marina. That would have been her former partner and her former husband, also her sister who lived nearby. As every police officer knows, most murders are committed by people known to the victim, so it would have been their primary avenue of inquiry.
As Marina and her ex-husband Gytis had shared custody of their daughter, police question him about the last time he saw her.
Under questioning, Gytis did disclose his movements on the night and day before the murder. He disclosed that he'd been celebrating his birthday.
He immediately said, yeah, Marina had come to his house, had then gone to a supermarket and bought some whiskey, and then gone back to her flat.
This would have been late in the evening into the early hours of the next day. And he said that he left Marina's flat at 2 o'clock in the morning and that when he left, she was fine.
They'd had a pleasant evening, they'd had a few drinks, but there was nothing else. He was saying, it's not me.
With Gytis admitting to being with Marina on the night of the murder, but claiming to have left on good terms at 2 a.m., investigators have little else to link him to the murder.
That he'd said that he'd been at the flat the night before. That poses actually an interesting dilemma for a senior investigating officer. Is what do you do with that? It's only suspicion. There is no hard evidence. You are hoping you're going to find some hard evidence through maybe forensic examination of the scene, CCTV, or anything like that, but that takes a long time.
Even without evidence against Gytis, police need to act fast in case he is in any way connected to the crime.
As the senior investigating officer, it's your decision whether to arrest a suspect, and not only whether to arrest a suspect at that time, when you do it and under what circumstances. The senior investigating officer in this case took the view that it was the most advantageous way for the investigation was to make an early arrest.
Gytis Griskevicius is arrested on suspicion of the murder of his ex-wife Marina.
Won't have been an easy decision. There would have been a train of thought undoubtedly about, well, there's no evidence here that he's involved. There will have been opinions within senior officers, probably more senior than the SIO in this case, that he shouldn't have been arrested. We would know that we'd only be able to keep him in custody a maximum of 24 hours, and if no evidence came forward during that period of time, he'd have to be released. So it's not a straightforward decision.
With the time ticking against them, police further question Gytis under caution.
He gave the same story as he'd done before he'd been arrested, that he'd been there with Marina voluntarily, he'd left around 2 o'clock in the morning, and she was fine when he left her.
But with Gytis now in custody, police can delve deeper into his life to find any evidence that might connect him to Marina's murder.
Once we arrest him, the purpose of that is to enable the police to search the house, search his vehicle, search him, examine him for any injuries.
On closer examination, officers notice an injury on Gytis's right hand, which he explains was caused by an accident. Despite the suspicious injury and Gytis being the last known person to see Marina alive, the police have no further evidence. And Gytis has been in custody for almost 24 hours.
One has to make a decision. Have we got enough evidence here to charge him? Clearly they hadn't.
Gytis is released on bail.
The news obviously left question marks for people in the area. Was this the man? Had they caught the killer? Or was the perpetrator still at large?
Police now move their focus away from Gytis and cast the net wider. They trawl through hours of CCTV across the local area in hopes to find anything that might lead them to Marina's killer.
They would have trawled hundreds of hours of CCTV.
CCTV examination is an art form. It isn't just a straightforward process. It can take weeks and weeks and weeks to do it methodically. Some of the bigger police forces these days have dedicated teams whose sole job it is to do that.
And after hours of examination, police find footage from the early hours of the 20th of May, the day Marina was thought to have been murdered. And it places Gytis back in the frame.
They managed to find him on CCTV.
The footage shows Gytis running towards Marina's house at 9:30 p.m. Rather than he had claimed, heading there with Marina after a party at his. Then, 2 hours later at 11:30 p.m, Marina and Gytis are seen together at a nearby supermarket. And then, crucially, he is caught on camera returning to his house much later than 2 a.m, the time he told police.
So he hadn't left Marina's home at 2 o'clock in the morning and gone straight home. He was seen around 7:30 in the morning, and I believe he got back to his own premises around about 8 o'clock in the morning. So straight away they know he wasn't where he said he was, when he said he was there. The story he gave from the outset was a pack of lies.
The CCTV footage disproves Gytis' story and places him near to the scene on the morning of the murder. But the police still need more evidence to strengthen their case.
The police would then start thinking, well, how can we bolster this circumstantial evidence?
The police then begin to find other pieces of evidence that link him to the murder. A pair of his shorts were found in his washing machine, which he was seen to be wearing on CCTV.
And lo and behold, no blood was found on the shorts or anything like that. But the police would then say, well, where's the hoodie that he was wearing? Where are the T-shirt that he was wearing? Where's his footwear? Where are his socks? None of which was ever found. The fact that he couldn't account for that, again, just adds to the circumstantial evidence.
Gytis' phone is seized and searched, which raises further suspicion.
They found he had inadvertently wiped all the data off his phone.
The police believe Gytis deliberately wiped his phone to hide incriminating messages. But with the only evidence being circumstantial, and forensic results from the scene showing no strong link to Gitus being the killer, will it be enough to charge him for murder? Or will the theory of a gang-related revenge attack for the crimes of her boyfriend hold the truth to the killing? Lincolnshire police are investigating the murder of 33-year-old mum Marina Urte. And although they have circumstantial evidence that links her ex-husband Gitus Griskevicius to the crime, they are lacking forensic evidence. Meanwhile, her new boyfriend is serving 18 years in prison for a violent assault on a rival gang, and there's a theory Marina could have been killed in a revenge attack. Then the police make an announcement. The Crown Prosecution Service has decided to send the case to trial. And it's Gitus they believe is the killer.
Following the CCTV and other pieces of evidence, Gitus was rearrested and charged with the murder.
Gitus pleads not guilty. And with the evidence being mainly circumstantial, the police have their work cut out to prove there is enough to convict him.
Certainly the lead up to a trial for murder involves a phenomenal amount of work. Making sure the evidence is presented in the correct fashion, making sure witnesses turn up. My feeling at the beginning of every murder trial I've been involved in was a fear of being perceived to have let the victim and the victim's family down. They are completely beholding upon you as an individual to bring some justice for their loved one.
In March 2017, the trial into Marina's murder begins at Lincoln Crown Court. And as Marina's friends and family enter the courtroom, they come face to face with her alleged killer.
When I came in, he looked at me with the eyes full of almost tears, and he looked at me as if I didn't do it.
As the trial begins, Marina's close friends reveal to the court details of her relationship with Gitus.
I remember she came to me when she was already heavily pregnant, and she was complaining that she's put on so much weight and Gitus is not happy anymore because she's not in the same shape as before. So I did notice that something was off. Why would you judge your wife for being a bit overweight when she's carrying your child?
And as time went by, the relationship continued to break down.
Then Gitus stopped investing into the family, doing anything around the house. And she would work and she would take all overtimes. So sometimes she would go weeks without a day off. And she would mention to him, maybe you should work more, or maybe you should at least wash the dishes. Then he would turn it back on her and humiliate her in terms of the weight or how she looks.
Marina then began to consider a life away from her husband.
She said to me that she wants a real man who'd take care of her and she would feel loved and cared for.
And in 2015, Marina broke off the relationship. And it wasn't long before she met her new partner, Alexander.
Marina was very happy. She said that I finally feel like a woman and I finally feel like I've been cared for. He gave me a perfume, and she said that over all these years with Gitus, he never gave her anything like that. She felt so much appreciated.
And friends revealed to the court that Gitus did not take Marina's new relationship well.
Griskevicius was still besotted with Marina. They'd split acrimoniously, but he still harboured a desire to get back with her. And he hated the fact that she was now with someone else.
He was described as being very jealous about the new boyfriend.
I met with him a few times on the street, and he said, how could she leave him? Because he's so good in bed. So he was not even thinking about the quality of life. He was raging about if his size is larger than his, how could she swap me for someone else?
But when Marina was arrested for perverting the course of justice, Gytis decides to use their daughter as leverage to get her back.
When police come up and arrested her, she didn't have a passport, she lost the job, and she didn't have a place to live. She lost everything, and in that moment, he got the girl.
She was praying and hoping that everything was gonna work out so she could then finally reunite with her daughter.
When she was fully acquitted of any wrongdoing, Marina asked to be reunited with her daughter. But Gytis refused.
I told him that you probably ought to allow Marina see the child, at least under the supervision of social workers in the children's center once a week for a few hours. She's probably missing her mother, and he was absolutely reluctant to do that, and he mentioned that we don't even mention mother's name in the house. Her girl was not allowed to pronounce her name in front of him.
He was sending her nasty messages about the girl, like no money, no honey, asking for money. Then he was taking girl out from the country, which she supposed not to do, and then posting in a Facebook saying, oh, hello, we are here. That was very nasty.
And things only got worse for Marina.
Marina had made all sorts of complaints against Griskevicius. She couldn't prove any of them. I think her vehicle had been damaged, she'd had a pedal bike stolen. She didn't know that it was him for sure, but she thought it really was, and it frightened her. There were a couple of occasions when she went to the police because he was seen filming her on his mobile phone, arriving at her house unannounced, and it spooked her to such an extent she went to the police.
I think Marina had confided in certain friends that she was worried that Gytis was stalking her.
She rings me one day, she says, he was standing on the corner of the street looking at the house.
However, in the last few days of Marina's life, hers and Gytis' relationship seemed to rekindle.
They restarted the communication. She rang me and she was so happy to say, oh, you don't know what just happened. I will see the child soon and he's talking to me in a nice way. And she was willing to resolve the conflict for her, for the daughter, and for him, for Gytis even. Just before the day, she rang me and she was very excited. And he said that he loves me and he wants to get back. He's the father of my child. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. And he wants to come over. He wants to celebrate his birthday with me. And I did tell her, do not meet him on your own.
Griskevicius was still besotted with Marina. I think he saw an opportunity there to say, right, I'm the father of your child. This is my birthday. Let's celebrate together, give it another go, and rekindle our marriage.
Back in the courtroom, it appears with only circumstantial evidence, Gytis could still walk free. But then a new witness takes to the stand and flips the case on its head.
This individual contacted the police and said, this guy admitted to me what he'd done. He admitted to me that he'd murdered Marina, and then he admitted that he'd set fire to the premises. And I'm prepared to give evidence to that effect.
After a grueling 2-week trial at Lincoln Crown Court, the jury returns its verdict. Gytis Griskevicius is found guilty of Marina Urte's murder. He is sentenced to life with a minimum of 23 years in prison.
The guy came and gave his evidence, and obviously the jury took it on board, and ultimately, with that and with all the circumstantial evidence, unanimously convicted him of murder. He's got to spend 23 years in jail before he even becomes eligible for parole. That's a long time by anyone's book. But you know, he committed one of the most horrific crimes you can imagine. On a defenceless mother of his own child, my view is that he deserves every one of those 23 years.
But why did Gytis decide to kill Marina? On that fateful night on the 20th of May 2016.
I think it was about the fact that she was shunning his advances. Even though a new boyfriend was going to be in prison for 18 years, she still wanted to stick by him. He couldn't bear the thought of that. And I think he thought, well, if I can't have you, no one else can.
I think Gytis was jealous and had been humiliated by the new relationship, and that was his motive for the murder.
He'd taken the poor woman, battered and beaten, from one part of the flat to another, where he attacked her again, bundled her into a bath, and then drowned her with a hose. I mean, how callous and calculating can he get?
And for Marina's neighbours, her killing still haunts them to this day.
I always get the question, did you not hear anything? I'm like, no, I didn't. I'm like, so wish I did. It was in my mind for a very long time, thinking, why the hell could I not just hear anything? And then maybe we could have given her some hope. No matter how much danger I'd be in, I would have busted through the door and tried to help. 100%. If I'd have heard anything, I'd have gone straight in there and tried to help her. Even though I'd be putting myself at danger, I'd still help her, because nobody deserves to lose life like that.
And for Marina's friends and family, with the case behind them, they are slowly coming to terms with a life without her.
The biggest thing I miss about Marina is her liveliness. She was very, very positive girl, full with ideas, full with life.
I miss everything about her because I don't have anyone similar to her. She was a very good friend, and in my difficult situations, when I'm so upset and I'm so down, I know that she would be the person to turn to. She would just tell me, everything's gonna be all right. Don't worry about anything. Everything's gonna be perfect. And she had so much power in these words that I would...
Police have launched a murder inquiry after an elderly woman was found dead at her home in Fleckney.
I was gobsmacked. There's something could happen like this, literally on my doorstep.
This case was one of a kind. Not only the nature of it, but the brutal nature of it.
When I found out, it just floored me. How? Why could that happen?
This is an old lady who's been murdered and seriously sexually assaulted in her home.
How could somebody that I'd grown up with be capable of doing something like that?
A lot of people were generally scared.
This just doesn't look right.
There was no sign of forced entry, so it was obvious that it was somebody that she knew.
Open the door!
Right, at this moment in time, I'm arresting on suspicion of murder.
Seven miles south of Leicester, in the heart of the English countryside, lies the quaint village of Fleckney.
Fleckney is a quiet village. It's very close now. It's like it has its own little bubble. People are very, very close. Everybody knows everybody. Most people are related in Fleckney.
Beautiful rural settings, friendly people, local community is fantastic. But yeah, lovely, lovely place to live and grow up in.
It's not the sort of place where a lot of crime happens. I'd been to Fleckney a few times. That had nothing to do with crime. I'd been there to judge a talent contest. I think it was called Fleckney's Got Talent.
The people who live in Fleckney are generally well-to-do. It's quite a low-crime area. There are retiring people there. There's some retirement bungalows around there. There's not a lot of throughfare. The people who are in Fleckney are generally the people who live there rather than the people who visit there.
And it was this perfect, idyllic village that 72-year-old Jane Hings chose to retire to.
Jane was an only child, and her mum and dad sadly passed away years before, which left her on her own with no immediate family around. Jane was quite a private person. She didn't like everyone to know, her business, and kept herself to herself, really. But once you got to know her, she opened up more, and it was just fun. She had quirky ways about her, but she was kind and she was caring.
Everybody in Fleckney knew Jane. She relied on people to give her a lift to the hairdressers, to the shops, things like that. She was inoffensive in every way. People didn't have bad things to say about her. And in her life beforehand, she worked hard.
Jane took pride in her appearance. She'd always, regular having her hair done every few weeks, and she'd always sort of make sure she was nicely dressed and put on a bit of makeup, so she'd still try and make the effort to look nice.
Having worked overseas as a nanny, Jane had settled into retirement, whilst also taking care of her much-loved rescue dog, Paddy.
He was spoilt rotten. Everything she did was for Paddy. You'd go in, there'd be dog treats stacked up to the ceiling. We'd lie on a bed at night and could look with her.
Whilst Jane used friends and neighbours to help walk Paddy, in the summer of 2017, an accident meant she needed a lot more care.
Goodbye. Jane had a fall and was admitted to hospital for about 3 or 4 weeks.
She'd suffered some injuries when her dog Paddy had pulled her over, and then when she came out of hospital, that's when she needed the carers and she needed help in getting around, and she couldn't go very far.
But the community came together for Jane, and she slowly got back on her feet.
She was the sort of person that people warmed to, they liked her, and they were happy to help out.
Then, just a few weeks after leaving hospital, tragedy strikes.
On the Sunday morning, Jane's carers went in as they were meant to, about 7 o'clock in the morning. Jane's front door was unlocked, which is normal. They went in. She was laid in bed. The cover was pulled up over her head and both of her arms were raised above her head. When they peeled back the duvet, which had covered her head entirely, they saw that she had died.
The carers are puzzled that Jane's body is covered completely by the duvet and call for an ambulance. Then, they notice something else unusual. Items are out of place in Jane's usually meticulous house.
And when the ambulance arrived, they could see that she'd been dead for some time. And the paramedic who was there, he looked around and could see that there'd been an untidy search. Some drawers were open, some things were knocked over.
Items were strewn across the floor, drawers were open.
Here is a lady who's died with the cover over her head, with the arms raised above the head, and it looks like there's been a burglary that's taken place.
With police at the scene, suspicions grow that this is not a natural death, and the house is immediately cordoned off. But with no obvious injuries, how Jane died is still a mystery, which means detectives begin to theorise what could have happened to the pensioner.
Is it a burglary that's gone wrong? Is it Jane who's suffered a heart attack following a burglary, or whether she has passed away and then a burglary has happened afterwards, or whether this is somebody who has murdered Jane and then burgled the bungalow afterwards?
The first step for detectives is to establish how Jane died.
I received a phone call from the duty detective inspector who said they had a death. They weren't 100% happy with it, and they would value my opinion on what was going on.
Dr. Hamilton attends the scene And as well as the unusual way Jane has been tucked into her bed, his suspicions are raised further.
And the most immediately concerning thing was that her nightdress appeared to be pulled up. And that seemed very unusual for somebody who'd simply died in their sleep. This just doesn't look right, it doesn't look normal.
As suspicions are raised that she could have been the victim of a sexual attack, Jane is taken for post-mortem. But almost immediately, everything changes.
This is HFM.
Police have launched a murder inquiry after an elderly woman was found dead at her home in Fleckney. The body was discovered in a bungalow on Elizabeth Road. It's thought the victim died at some point during Saturday evening or in the early hours of Sunday.
Whilst transporting Jane, a shocking piece of evidence has been found.
As we took the body, a tongue bar fell from one of the creases in the skin. Ms. Hings didn't have a tongue piercing, so we have evidence of somebody else very close to her body. That ultimately became one of the most important pieces of evidence in catching the killer.
On a quiet Sunday morning in the village of Fleckney in Leicestershire, residents are waking up to disturbing news of a possible murder on their doorstep.
This is HFM.
Further tests are being carried out to try to determine what killed an elderly woman in her own home in Fleckney. It prompted police to launch a murder inquiry following the discovery of her body in the property on Elizabeth Road. There were signs of a disturbance in her bungalow, which has led officers to believe she may have been the victim of a burglary.
72-year-old Jane Hings has been found dead by her carers early on a Sunday morning. Her house has been burgled, and there's signs she has been sexually assaulted. Police are treating her death as suspicious and have cordoned off the scene.
There was police tape from the tree round to the lamppost. You couldn't get to where, if you can just see that red car behind this thing, that was all blocked off as well, because that's the back of her house. It's not something we expected to ever happen in Fleckney. It's such a quiet village, a nice village. I was gobsmacked. There's something could happen like this, you know what I mean? On my doorstep, literally on my doorstep. And for people that I knew.
It's a place where you could leave your doors and windows open. Everybody knows everybody. But, you know, this sent shockwaves through the community. And I think that a lot of people would have felt generally scared.
With the village inundated with police vehicles, Jane's loved ones are also confronted with the news of her death.
I'd arranged to go over to Jane's on the Sunday morning to take Paddy for a walk. And as usual, I was running late. And I'd had no phone call, which was really strange. And then I pulled into the close where she lived and just saw loads of police cars, police vans, forensics, and yeah, that's when I found out. So I last spoke to Jane the night before. I was supposed to go and see her that day. I'd been on holiday, so I hadn't seen her for a couple of weeks. And we were on the phone for about an hour. I miss Jane. I miss the phone calls. There was so much she could have talked about her life, and I didn't get to hear any of it. And my phone is so deadly quiet all the time.
Whilst moving Jane's body, pathologists have discovered a tongue bar in her groin.
The investigation then shifted from, is this a burglary that's gone wrong, to this is an old lady who's been murdered and seriously sexually assaulted in her home.
That tongue bar was put into an evidence bag immediately. Everyone knew that this was potentially important. That went straight off. It was fast-tracked through the DNA lab.
As detectives wait for the DNA results, utmost on their mind is that this might not be an isolated incident.
One of our first lines of inquiry is to research cases of a similar nature, and we conducted a number of checks looking at anybody who was already convicted and in prison who could have been on day release for the same offence. But then this case was one of a kind. Not only the nature of it, but the brutal nature of it.
Immediately, door-to-door inquiries begin.
When officers initially attended the scene, we tried to identify people who would know Jane the last time that she was seen or spoken to.
Officers investigate whether Jane had any enemies in the village.
When we looked at Jane's past, there was no fallouts with anybody. There was nothing to indicate somebody with a vendetta, somebody with a grudge, any past history with anybody which would tell us this person has a long-running grudge against Jane and would want ill of her.
But locals have their own suspicions.
When the police first came, they said there was no sign of forced entry or anything like that, so it was obvious that it was somebody that she knew.
And it appears that whoever stole from Jane took some of her most precious items. Her wedding ring and a necklace are missing, along with her mobile phone, handbag, and £200. But police find an item they suspect doesn't belong to her.
Behind that bed, between the headboard and the wall, was a baseball cap found on the floor.
It was a designer cap, something that didn't belong to Jane.
The question police want to know is, whose hat is it? And did its owner have anything to do with Jane's death? With the post-mortem results in, it's apparent Jane has suffered a brutal attack.
Really tellingly, she had lacerations, she had tears, both to her anus and to her vagina. The external injuries were really focused around the mouth and the nose and the upper neck area. Ms. Hings didn't have that many injuries on her body, but what there was told a story. There was a little linear graze, a scratch on her neck, and we know that her necklace was missing. It would certainly fit with somebody having pulled that necklace and it scraping across the skin. The most important thing that the post-mortem brought out in itself was that there was no natural cause for her to die. No natural cause for Miss Hings to be dead. In addition, there was some quite disturbing bruising around her jawline, around her mouth, something that really makes you think we have to be sure that this woman hasn't been strangled or smothered.
Less than 24 hours after Jane was discovered, the fast turnaround DNA profile from the tongue bar is returned from the lab.
That profile was put into the DNA database and they soon had a match. They had a hit, and that match was Craig Kehoe.
26-year-old Craig Kehoe's DNA was on file, as he was known to the local police as a petty criminal. Now, he was part of a major manhunt.
Craig Kehoe was a local lad. He grew up in the area. He still lived in the area. Craig led a transient lifestyle. He doesn't have a car, he didn't have a phone, he didn't have a job, he didn't claim benefits. So trying to work out where he lived in the Fleckney area meant we had to do a lot of inquiries at a fast pace, but in a discreet way as well.
Police managed to trace Craig to a caravan which was on the outskirts of Fleckney, but not very far from where Jane lived.
Once we'd identified that he was living in a caravan, we sent officers there.
Someone in the caravan! Police! Open the door! Police, open the door! Someone with the dark hair in there.
And there was a slight standoff of about 30 seconds where the caravan was surrounded and Craig took some time coming to the door before he was arrested.
Right, hands behind back.
Right, at this moment in time, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. Arrest necessary for prompt and effective investigation. You don't have to say anything. May harm to face. Do not mention one question. Something which later will lie in the court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand everything I've said to you?
Craig is taken into custody as detectives try to build a picture of the young man they suspect murdered Jane.
He didn't live far from Jane. He was a former factory worker. He'd been in trouble for burglary, a few break-ins and stealing from his parents and from a friend. But he wasn't known as a major criminal. He wasn't known for anything as horrific as this.
As Craig's DNA was identified on the tongue bar and in her bungalow, detectives want to know how it got there. Craig is interviewed under caution.
When was the last time you saw her then?
The last time I saw her was Sunday night.
Okay. What time would that have been?
I got there for about 10:30.
You got there at 10:30?
Yeah.
That's PM?
About 10:30 at night.
At night? Okay. So if we take from 10:30 at night then, through to when you left at 11,
Yeah.
tell me exactly in detail what happened.
Well, I was watching a little film on the TV, and then she asked me to have sex with her again.
Just tell me exactly what she said to you about having sex.
She just said, Craig, will you have sex with me? And then, well, the first time it started off was about a month ago, and I was in the house, and then she just came into the front room naked, and then she was like, Craig, come and do it with me and I'll pay you.
He offered the reason that his DNA was inside of Jane and inside the scene was because Jane had paid him for sex.
Okay, and how much did she pay you?
Yeah, she paid me £200.
£200.
In the village of Fleckney in Leicestershire, police have arrested 25-year-old Craig Keogh on suspicion of the murder of Jane Hings.
Do not have to say anything. May harm to face. Do not mention one question. Something which later will lie in the court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand everything I've said to you?
Could this local lad really be responsible for the rape and murder of a 72-year-old pensioner? The news has sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community.
How could somebody that I'd grown up with all these years could be physically capable of doing something like that? I felt sick and it was horrible. Like, who does things something like that? To such, you know what I mean? You hear about it, but she was an old lady. She was old. He was a young lad.
Keogh has been taken into custody and is being interviewed under caution. With his DNA found on the victim and at the scene, detectives want to know how Craig knows Jane. And he has an explanation.
I was walking through the village, and I saw this lady, and her shopping bag broke, and I helped her, and then I carried it to the house with her.
Craig told us in an interview that he met Jane when he was down the shops, and that she asked him to pick up some shopping for him and offered him some money for it, and then asked him to walk her dog, Paddy, as well.
But Craig alleges that it wasn't just household chores Jane was paying him for.
And then another time, she's asked me to have sex with her for money. And it happened a month ago, the first time. And then she's asked me to come back a month later. And then it happened again.
Key to the police investigation was the tongue piercing found in Jane's groin.
Have you got any piercings?
I got my ear pierced.
Your ear pierced? Okay. Anywhere else?
Yeah, my tongue pierced.
Your tongue?
Craig goes on to admit that he'd been with Jane the night she died, saying he arrived at her house around 10:30 p.m.
Tell me exactly in detail what happened.
Well, we were watching a little film on the TV, and then she asked me to have sex with her at the end, and she's like, "I'll pay you more this time." I was like, "Okay." I didn't think anything of it, and that was it really. And she said she felt sick, and then I left her.
Craig's detailed account that he had sex with Jane and left her very much alive turns the investigation on its head.
During the course of his interviews, he came up with an explanation as to what happened. I have to say, it was so bizarre.
Craig also suggested that Jane, whilst alive, was unwell when he left.
What he was saying was that she'd become a little bit wobbly and a little bit unwell, and had then gone back to her bed. He'd then closed the door, and obviously whatever happened afterwards was someone else. Some stranger, no doubt having seen that the door was open, would have gone in there, burgled her, and perhaps killed her. And so that might possibly have been an explanation for what happened.
The interviewing officers had to keep an open mind, but had to probe and get as much detail from him as possible to find out whether it was right or not.
Was Craig telling the truth? Was Jane alive when he left? And so was it someone else who sexually assaulted and killed her? Forensics carry out a detailed search for additional DNA or fingerprints on Jane or in the bungalow.
There was nothing else from the scene, from Jane, from the post-mortem which identified anybody else other than Craig. We'd had all of these things examined, and they only pointed at Craig Keogh and did not point to anybody else.
With no one else in the frame, Craig's movements on the night in question are investigated.
Craig had been on a night out in Oadby, a nearby town.
I think it was between 8:30 he came in that night. Remember it well because Leicester City had played Liverpool on that night, so we had a fair few in. He stood out straight away because he had his baseball cap the other way around, and he was just bouncing up and down.
Staff at the pub said that he appeared agitated, aggressive, and almost as if he was up for a fight. They said he was high on drink and drugs.
Now, this was crucially important evidence because in his interviews, he'd said that by 10:30 that evening, he was sitting in Jane Hing's living room in Fleckney, watching a war film and having a drink with her. But that was a lie. He was out with his friends. We were able, by that process, to show that he'd taken cocaine, that he was offering to sell other people cocaine, and that he was complaining about how boring the evening was.
As doubt is cast on Keogh's version of events, police trace his movements after he leaves the pub. He's next seen arriving back in Fleckney at just after 1 a.m.
His friends say that the last time they saw him was when the taxi dropped him off and they assumed he was going home.
But Keogh walks in the opposite direction of his caravan, heading in the direction of Jane's bungalow.
Owen disappeared on Sunday, July 22nd, 2001. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Nikki McCowan's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her. A young woman with everything to live for.
She's gonna marry the man of her dreams.
Vanishes from an ordinary laundromat.
Nobody has any answers as to where she went and what happened.
Turning a family's life upside down.
You're living a nightmare. You just wish you could wake up.
It never dawned in our wildest imaginations that we may not see this woman again.
The case stumps police.
The case goes cold on us. It just dries up.
Until an unsolved murder of a different woman offers clues.
It was an anonymous tip, and they just stated that we needed to look at him as a possible suspect.
Does someone know what happened to Nikki McCowan?
Until they can prove it to me, she's still alive to me.
July 22nd, 2001. It's a summer Sunday in Richmond, Indiana. And as usual, 28-year-old Nikki McCowan attends church with her fiancé, Bobby Webster. Their wedding is just 3 weeks away.
We're getting married August 18th and pretty much taking care of the final steps and stages to get that taken care of.
Weeks earlier, Nikki McCowan was a bridesmaid at another wedding. A friend's camera captured the only known home video of Nikki.
Hi, Mia. Hi, Al. I just want to congratulate you and say I love you.
August 18th, Nikki was going to become Mrs. Robert Webster, and she was really, really looking forward to it.
She was thrilled. I mean, yes, that's what she talked about. She finally had the man of her dreams.
Nikki McCowan and Bobby Webster had dated in high school. But they went their separate ways after he left for California in 1991. Nikki moved on to other relationships, and at 19, gave birth to a little girl she named Peyton.
She loved being a mother. Peyton's her world. She wanted Peyton to have the finer things in life, so she busted her butt.
To support Peyton and herself, Nikki worked for a correctional center in Dayton, Ohio.
She started out as just a guard, and from there she worked her way up to a head accountant. She really excelled in just about anything she went after.
She had long-term goals. Nikki wanted to be either an FBI agent or a U.S. Marshal. She was going to school. She was taking some criminal justice classes.
In 1998, Bobby Webster returned from California. Older and more mature, he decided Nikki was the woman for him, and he proposed marriage.
What attracted me to Nikki was her strong will. She knew what she wanted, and she went out and got the things that she did want, and her mind was made up before she even started.
Nikki's parents and her 9 siblings are thrilled.
This was the way it was supposed to be, you know. She was going to be happy.
That Sunday afternoon, in July of 2001, Nikki and Bobby busied themselves with wedding preparations and household chores.
I had made plans to go with my cousin, Billy, to get his tuxedo sized. And she took my vehicle and she took the laundry, and she said she was going to knock out the laundry while I was at the mall.
Around noon, Nikki heads to her parents to drop off her daughter Peyton before going to a nearby laundromat.
Last thing I said to Nikki was, I'll be back by 4 or 5 to do the wedding invitations that evening.
A few hours later, Nikki drops by her parents' house again, while her clothes are in the dryer. During this visit, Nikki seems agitated.
Something was really bugging her, like she couldn't throw it off. I kept saying, now calm down, Nikki, calm down, you're gonna be okay.
Nikki tells her mom that there are some men hassling her down at the laundromat.
And I said, well, Nikki, if it's troubling you that much, my washer and dryer is downstairs. Just go get your clothes and bring them here and finish drying them down there. She said, I'll be okay, Mom.
Minutes later, Nikki leaves her parents to return to the laundromat.
She said, I'll be back, Mom. And I said, okay, and that's it.
When Bobby returns from the tuxedo store later that afternoon, Nikki is not yet home.
I didn't see the laundry there or my truck. She kicks her sandals off the doorway. And I think that's the first thing I noticed. Her sandals weren't there, but, you know, I just figured that I'd gotten home before she did.
2 hours later, Nikki still hasn't returned. Bobby begins to worry.
The time I thought something may be wrong was between 6 and 7 with no phone call or anything. And then from that point, it went to another hour. There's been no word.
Around 6:30 p.m., Nikki's sister Michelle is visiting another sister, Tammy.
She asked me if I seen Nikki. I said, no, I ain't seen Nikki. Why? What's wrong? She was like, Bobby's been calling, looking around for her. He can't find her. I was like, oh, she's probably out shopping or something.
When Nikki is late to pick up her daughter Peyton, her mother assumes she's at work.
I just said, oh, she's all right. I said, you know how Nikki sometimes, just on the spur of the moment, will jump in her car and go over to Ohio because she worked there.
At the apartment where Nikki lives with Bobby and Peyton, there are no signs that her absence is anything more than temporary. Her essentials are still on her bedside table.
She left her purse, her ID, her clothes was all there. There was nothing missing outside of the laundry that she took with her to go to the laundry.
As night falls and Nikki fails to return, the McCowans become increasingly anxious.
Everybody seemed a little concerned, but the last thing we would think that she was missing.
But by 10 p.m., Nikki's fiancé senses that something is very wrong.
The first thing within my mind is something has happened as far as a vehicle accident or something like that.
We drove to Dayton to see if she might have been stuck or she didn't have a cell phone or anything, way to call nobody.
The family checks along the highway, but there is no sign of Nikki. By 2 a.m., the McCowans are racked with worry.
Everybody seemed really, really concerned. It seemed like it was really starting to hit everybody at that time.
Nikki's father insists the family go to police immediately and fill out a missing persons report.
When he did that, I knew something was up because he was always the one that says, out of all my kids, this is the one I know can handle anything.
But now, in the space of a single Sunday afternoon, the McCowans' world has been thrown into chaos.
My head got to spinning. Where is Nikki?
Coming up, suspicion focuses on someone close to Nikki.
There wasn't any question that he was being deceitful or lying.
On Sunday, July 22nd, 2001, 28-year-old bride-to-be Nikki McCowan disappears from a laundromat in Richmond, Indiana.
She loved life. She lived it to the fullest.
It never dawned in our wildest imaginations that we may not see this woman again. I mean, that was the last thing to cross our mind.
It's the day after Nikki disappeared. Her family has filed a missing persons report. But initially, police see no reason to be concerned.
There were no phone calls indicating any trouble. There were no indicators that any harm had come to her.
That afternoon, Nikki's family locates a surveillance video taken at a deli near the laundromat.
The village pantry did show her stopping in. I think she may have purchased a Coke or something. At that moment, nothing seemed out of the ordinary.
The video adds to the police's impression that nothing is wrong.
We can see her car sitting on the lot, and then we see her leaving, and no one following her.
Earlier that Sunday afternoon, Nikki told her mother she'd been hassled at the laundromat. Police check, but no one remembers seeing anything.
They had no information that was any altercations outside the laundromat. Nothing really raised red flags on it.
Police instead speculate that Nikki may have voluntarily left her fiancé.
We thought, well, okay, were they fighting, were they arguing, or does she have cold feet? And just decide that, hey, you know, I'm taking off.
The members of Nikki's family disagree. They don't believe Nikki would willfully disappear.
She wouldn't up and leave Peyton. I knew this wasn't her. And she wanted this wedding so bad, so why would she walk away from it?
Nikki's sister decides to make her job the test.
I knew she didn't miss work. Work was Nikki's life.
If Nikki doesn't show up at the Montgomery Pre-Release Center in Dayton, then something awful has happened.
They buzzed me in. I came in, said, have she showed up for work yet? They said, no, we haven't seen Nikki. At that moment, I broke down. I started crying my eyes out. Oh my God, what's happened to Nikki?
I went outside and I just started walking the yard. And I said, where's she at, Lord? And I kept saying, Lord, just bring her home. I don't know where she's at, but just bring her home.
Immediately, the family hits the road in search of Nikki.
We were looking, searching, knocking on doors everywhere that we think she may have gone.
We passed out flyers, trying to get some attention for Nikki so we could get some help.
For police, Nikki's failure to show up at work also raises a red flag.
That started the process. We put investigators out checking hotels, start making phone calls.
Police also knock on doors near the laundromat, hoping to talk to people who frequent the area.
We had investigators go down there and interview people to see if they knew anything about her, remember seeing her.
This foray turns up nothing concrete. Nikki's cell phone and bank accounts also lead nowhere. And a helicopter search over Richmond and Dayton fails to find Nikki's missing vehicle. Despite the lack of physical leads, police soon hone in on a possible suspect. It's the man Nikki was planning to marry. In the days after Nikki's disappearance, Bobby Webster's actions strike investigators as suspicious. The day after she goes missing, he calls the community college where Nikki was taking classes and wants to collect her unused tuition money.
Right off the bat, he calls the college and wanting all of her college money. He gets so irate with the person he talks to on the phone, lady that's in charge of the financing, talks to him and tells him that she has no money, that her college is being paid by her employer. We find out that on Wednesday, he goes to the jewelry store and tries to take back the wedding rings that she had purchased for him.
By midweek, police say, Bobby Webster has canceled the wedding and demanded the deposit back. Word of Bobby's actions reaches Nikki's family.
He's talking about canceling the wedding, like he knew she wasn't coming back. Why would you cancel a wedding so fast? Nikki wanted to get married so bad, so why are you already automatically giving up on her?
Bobby denies canceling the wedding.
I never told anyone it was even canceled. But at that time, it's obvious the last thing on my mind is this wedding. I want Nikki, and then the wedding is second to that.
He also denies trying to wring money out of Nikki's college.
Yes, I inquired about her student loan, but I wasn't trying to get it.
The ring, he says, was returned for good reason.
I just wanted the deposit back to buy a cell phone because we didn't have one at the time, and there was so much running around involved. I just thought that might be a tool that would help us.
Nevertheless, police ask Bobby Webster to take a polygraph test.
One of the questions that they ask him is, did you have anything to do with the disappearance of Nikki McCowan, or do you know anything about her disappearance? And he said no, and according to the polygraph operator, it about blew the needle off the chart, indicating that he was lying to us.
The question that we're asked was, do I feel responsible? Who isn't going to feel responsible for not being there to protect their woman if they think she was in a position where she needed help?
In spite of Bobby Webster's actions and the failed polygraph test, police do not arrest him.
We still have no evidence to link him to any crime.
There's no proof at this point that anything happened. They don't have any evidence to suggest that, you know, there was a murder, that anybody did anything that they shouldn't have to Nikki McCowan.
All Richmond detectives can do is label Nikki's fiancé a person of interest.
The person of interest, by definition, is someone who is able to give the police information that can help them with a case.
He knows something more than what he's telling us, and it's a matter of trying to get him to talk.
I have no knowledge of anything that happened to my fiancée, Nikki McCowan, that day. Why would I want to do anything to the most wonderful person in my life?
Webster believes that the police's focus on him is using up valuable time in the investigation.
You can't get any further off the scent of the trail than now messing with me. I knew that. They didn't, but I did. So I kind of had doubts that they would even solve this case.
At this point in the investigation, detectives have no other significant leads in the case. As days turn into weeks, the lack of progress angers the members of Nikki's family.
The sisters or some of the brothers would make accusations, we weren't doing our job, we were looking at the wrong people.
Family members begin their own aggressive effort to chase down any and all leads.
People would tell us Nikki's in this house, and the whole family would get in a car and go there, and it would get really, really chaotic because we're like wanting to kick the door in and stuff.
For the police, the family's efforts to find Nikki go seriously overboard.
Got to the point where we'd have to threaten to arrest them.
A couple of my brothers were arrested because they were doing a lot of things they probably shouldn't have, looking for Nikki.
We may have stepped on a few people's feet. I'm not going to apologize for that because I was trying to find my baby.
Despite the efforts of both police and family, Nikki's trail goes cold. The McCowans shut Bobby Webster out of their family.
No one wants to let me know anything now. Then before I had a good relationship with the family, but it was severed.
For weeks, there are no leads. Then, 3.5 months after Nikki disappears, there's a stunning break in the case. Coming up, Nikki's car surfaces.
Oh my God, they found Nikki's vehicle. Now they can find Nikki.
Almost 4 months have passed since 28-year-old Nikki McCowan went missing from a laundromat in Richmond, Indiana. Police have tried to connect her fiancé, Bobby Webster, to her disappearance.
I felt like an outcast. I felt like everyone just locked me away in a room and just judged me. It's unfair, but it's the path I guess God chose for me to go.
Police acknowledge there's no evidence that Webster is involved.
We have a lot of information, but it doesn't take us anywhere. So that leads us to a dead end.
As hope of finding anything dims, there's a major break in the case.
We got a phone call from Montgomery County Sheriff's Department.
Nikki's vehicle has surfaced in Dayton, Ohio, 40 miles from her home in Richmond.
They had located the vehicle in an apartment complex called Meadows of Catawba.
Excited by the new lead, Richmond detectives rush to the site of the vehicle. There, they capture their first significant piece of evidence on camera.
We were elated. We thought, here we go, this is going to help us solve the case.
My heart stopped. I felt like, oh my God, they found Nikki's vehicle. Now they can find Nikki.
The vehicle has been left in the parking lot of a Dayton apartment complex. Amazingly, though Nikki disappeared almost 4 months earlier, police find her laundry. It's still inside the car.
They said the clothes were still folded, like she'd folded them up and put them in the car. There's her laundry, there's her car, so where's Nikki?
Richmond police tow the car back to Indiana and put it through a battery of tests.
We checked the inside of the car for fingerprints. We checked it for hair fibers. We checked it for blood to see if there was any blood stains.
Nothing turns up. No signs of a break-in or a struggle. No fibers and no strange fingerprints.
It was hard even for us as law enforcement officers to take because we had based our hopes so much on finding the car. It was a major disappointment for us.
It broke my heart. Now we're back to square one.
The car doesn't yield any leads, but the location where it's found does. A man named Tommy Swint lives just a quarter-mile away. It turns out, he once had a complicated relationship with Nikki.
Tommy Swint was a co-worker of Nikki McCown's at the Montgomery Pre-Release Center. To what extent their relationship extended, is kind of up in the air.
Detectives quickly discover that Nikki and Tommy Swint had conflicting ideas about their friendship.
He was more like a big brother to her, but in his eyes, I think that he was looking at her in a different light than she was looking at him.
They also learned that Tommy Swint had a violent streak, one that Nikki's sister Michelle had experienced years earlier.
I had stopped by Nikki's apartment. Outside, I could hear her screaming, and as I opened the door, she's sitting on a chair with her foot inside his chest. He's like leaning over, and she's like, "Help, he's trying to rape me." I felt that if I hadn't stopped by that day and I hadn't walked in the door, that he may have raped Nikki.
Now, detectives want to talk to Swint. But Swint will not cooperate. And without specific evidence, police cannot force him to do anything. Like Bobby Webster, they tag him as a person of interest.
We're not saying at that point in time that he actually killed her, but he's got information that could be helpful to us to lead us to her whereabouts and what happened to her.
Despite having two persons of interest, the investigation stalls once again.
It just dries up. The case goes cold on us.
The McCowans struggle to keep Nikki's case in the public eye.
That's the thing that they tell you to do. Keep it in the media's attention. Don't let them forget.
One year after Nikki vanishes, her sisters travel to New York to tell her story on a TV talk show. On the broadcast, a psychic named Sylvia Brown claims Nikki was murdered.
She said she died, that they killed her that day, and that we would find her body in a trench somewhere around the laundromat.
Nikki's sisters provide the information to police.
So we, in fact, did go out and look around the area. The idea of the trench and the laundromat didn't lead us anywhere.
Nikki's family keeps looking for her. In 2004, the family works with a missing persons organization offering a $100,000 reward for information leading to Nikki's return.
We thought with this amount of money that surely somebody out there that knew something would come forward. We had a press conference here on the second floor of the city building.
I just feel that this is Nikki's day. This is Nikki's day.
You got 20 days. 20 days to come forth.
To be wealthy.
To come forth and get your $100,000. $100,000 is a lot of money, and I thought that one would definitely work.
So I thought this was it. Somebody's finally gonna talk. But they didn't.
As the years pass, Nikki's disappearance and the fight to find her take a huge toll on her family.
It's like you're living a nightmare and you just wish you could wake up. Your life was fine. Now you have a missing sister.
Nikki's daughter Peyton, just 9 at the time of Nikki's disappearance, grows up without a mom.
For the longest, I didn't like to hear the word mom. It was hard going around watching all kinds of daughters and moms holding hands and being happy together.
With Nikki gone, it's Nikki's mom and sisters who raise Peyton. On the 5th anniversary of her disappearance, family and friends gather to remember Nikki.
We gathered at the laundromat and we had candles lit.
Peyton, just 14, addresses the crowd and pleads for her mom's safe return.
please, if just do it, just not for the family, just do it for your own good. Just do it because you feel bad for us or something. Just don't keep her away from us because she needs us and we need her.
Despite all their efforts, the family of Nikki McCowan cannot prevent her case slipping from public view. Then, without warning, 6 years after the investigation, a bombshell. Coming up, police learn that Nikki's former coworker is connected to an unsolved murder of a different woman. More than 5 years have passed since Nikki McCowan disappeared, leaving a trail of heartbreak and frustration for her family.
She had her whole life ahead of her.
We fought and fought and fought, and we get nowhere.
But just as the trail threatens to go completely cold, a revelation rocks the case. Six years after Nikki vanishes, Richmond detectives receive some shocking news. It concerns Tommy Swint, the man who worked with Nikki and once threatened her. Detectives still consider Swint a person of interest in their investigation. They're convinced he knows something. Now, they're stunned to learn Swint has been hired as a police officer for the city of Trotwood, near Dayton.
We were shocked that he would be working as a police officer.
Members of Nikki McCowan's family are also stunned. They believe Swint is connected to Nikki's disappearance.
How are they going to give somebody like this a job as a police officer? How did this just slip through the cracks?
I was mad. I was very much sure Tommy had something to do with Nikki's disappearance.
Richmond detectives quickly informed Trotwood police that Swint is a person of interest in Nikki's investigation.
We had spoke to him about the disappearance of Nikki McCowan. We had spoke to him on a couple of occasions.
Now, they moved to get him dismissed.
He was told to resign or they would start termination process on him.
Swint resigns. Stung by his downfall, Swint responds by suing the city of Richmond and its police department.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Swint?
At a press conference, Swint and his lawyer maintain that police never conclusively told him he was a person of interest in their investigation.
He was never identified as a suspect, never identified as a person of interest, never charged with a crime, never accused of being someone who was involved in anything in that nature. He was interviewed because this was a friend of his that he knew.
There was not one time that Detective Redmond told me or informed me that I was a suspect or a person of interest.
Police insist Swint knew he was a person of interest all along. His lawsuits go nowhere. Tommy Swint's firing and his link to Nikki McCowan land him in the headlines.
It was very much all over the news. There were news stories in our paper, news stories in the Dayton paper.
The coverage prompts something no one expected. An anonymous call that links Tommy Swint to an unsolved murder of a different woman.
We get a call from Dayton Police Department, one of their detectives that works cold case homicides.
It's Detective Patty Tackett. Dayton police have received some explosive information about Swint.
It was an anonymous tip that called in, and they just stated that we might want to look at him as a suspect. Gave very limited information, but just to the fact that we needed to look at him as a possible suspect.
The tip linked Swint to an unsolved murder. 16 years earlier, some forest workers had found a body in a pile of brush near Dayton and reported it to police.
What they discovered there was a blanket wrapped around and taped around the body of a young female.
The body was identified as 33-year-old Tina Marie Ivory. She had been the victim of a vicious strangling.
Tina Marie Ivory was a troubled young woman who had fallen into a life of prostitution and who lived in the Dayton area.
At the time, stains on the blanket enabled Dayton forensic experts to create a specific DNA profile of Ivory's killer. But there was a problem. Detectives needed a suspect, a potential match for their profile.
We can get DNA off of a victim or from a homicide scene, but that DNA is only as good as if we do have the suspect's DNA.
There were no suspects in the Ivory case, so no match for the DNA profile. Like the McCowan case, the Tina Marie Ivory investigation went cold and stayed that way.
For 16 years, they hadn't had any information as far as who did this to this woman.
Until November 2007, when police received that anonymous tip linking the Ivory murder and Tommy Swint. Now, armed with that tip, Dayton detectives reactivate the Ivory investigation.
The first thing that they needed to do was to be able to find if there was a way to match the DNA that they had from 1991 to Tommy Swint's DNA.
Aware that Swint is a person of interest in the McCowan case, Dayton detectives approached their counterparts in Richmond.
And we just follow up on that lead, which took us to Richmond, contacted Richmond.
Incredibly, Richmond police can provide Dayton detectives with Swint's DNA. They have a sample. Just a few months earlier, during the controversy in which Swint was ousted from Trotwood police, Richmond detectives saw their opportunity to obtain Swint's DNA.
He was telling the public and through his attorney that he'd more than cooperated for the Richmond Police Department. That's when we said, okay, if you say you're cooperating, give us your DNA.
At police headquarters in Richmond, officials took the sample from Swint.
We take DNA samples for several reasons. Is one, if something would show up later on, if we could find Nikki McCowan's body, if there was any DNA on her, we would have that to match up.
Now, Richmond police send Swint's sample to Dayton's crime lab.
And we were able to take his profile and match it against the DNA profile we made during the analysis of the samples taken from the clothing and the wrapping material of the victim.
They were able to match that with DNA that was found on the body of the female that was murdered.
Detectives have matched Swint's DNA to DNA from the Tina Marie Ivory crime scene. But they still need to tie Swint directly to her murder.
Just because you have DNA on a body doesn't make that person the person that murdered her. You have to get more evidence that puts Tommy Swint's DNA there.
Detectives must place Swint at the scene of the crime. Forensic experts re-examine the major evidence in the Ivory case.
We also had the tape that was used to bind the victim. So the fingerprint examiner looked at the tape again.
Amazingly, the re-examination reveals a further impression, unseen 16 years earlier.
They were able to lift in a palm print from tape that was used to wrap the body that they didn't have the technology to get back in 1991. Then the next hurdle was to be able to match the fingerprint to Tommy Swint.
Dayton detectives traveled to Alabama to obtain Tommy Swint's fingerprints. Their prime suspect has recently relocated south.
We went down and actually did a traffic stop on him in order to bring him to the police station in Alabama to get his fingerprints. He was cooperative, he gave them to us.
The detectives are able to interview Swint, a moment captured on a police camera.
Well, if I told you we had your DNA off her, would you believe it? No, I don't believe it.
And the reason is because we're not you killed her.
So what?
That you killed her.
Are you stating that I killed her?
I'm asking you, did you kill her? Okay,
I don't
if
even
I'm
know.
telling you that we have evidence that says that you did, what do you have to say to that?
And all due respect. And I understand what your job is. but I'm gonna have to bring this to a close.
The detectives keep questioning Swint about Tina Marie Ivory and do not ask him about Nikki McCowan's disappearance. There is still no evidence linking him to Nikki's case. Back in Dayton, the crime lab receives Swint's fingerprint profile. Experts examine it to see if it matches the print found on the tape wrapped around Tina Ivory's body.
It was compared against that impression that was picked off the tape, and a positive identification was made.
It was a match. That the fingerprints that were on the tape did belong to Tommy Swint.
For Dayton detectives, the fingerprint match triggers an arrest warrant for Tommy Swint. For Richmond detectives, it's equally significant. Their person of interest in the Nikki McCowan case is now close to being indicted for the murder of another woman.
We saw a possibility of finally ending the case of Nikki McCowan.
Coming up, a shocking twist in the search for Nikki McCowan's killer.
I said, Lord, you didn't bring me this far just to let this happen.
Almost 9 years have passed since Nikki McCowan vanished. Now, authorities are closing in on Nikki's former friend and co-worker for the murder of a different woman. A grand jury in Dayton, Ohio, indicts Tommy Swint for the killing of Tina Marie Ivory. It's the moment detectives have been waiting for.
We were hoping that he would say something, admit to us or to them that what happened to Nikki McCowan.
Less than 1 hour later, police prepare to arrest Swint in Russell County, Alabama.
I contacted Alabama to let them know that the indictment had come out, and they did their procedures as far as getting their backup in order to make sure that they made the arrest.
At exactly 1 p.m., police drive up to Swint's house. They approach the front door. At that moment, a shot rings out.
They heard a gunshot, and they went into the house.
Police break down the door and find Swint on the floor, a gun in his hand.
They had found that Tommy had actually taken his life.
Detectives on the McCowan case are devastated.
We're instantly pissed. We're angry. You know, our one shot that we thought we had of finally finding out and getting a conclusion to Nikki McCowan is up in smoke.
Nikki's family hears the unsettling news.
My son, he said, Mom, you know what this means, don't you? And I said, what? He said, you ain't gonna find no answer. Excuse me. I said, oh no. I said, oh, please don't let this be right. I said, so close, so close.
9 years after Nikki McCowan disappeared from the laundromat in Richmond, her case has no resolution. Still, her family is grateful that Tina Marie Ivory's family has some answers.
I feel blessed that Nikki at least brought closer to Tina Marie Ivory's family, because this wouldn't have happened if there was no missing Nikki McCowan.
For Nikki's family, the death of Tommy Swint is a missed opportunity.
I said, Lord, you didn't bring me this far just to let this happen. I said, this ain't right. I said, this ain't right.
They firmly believe Tommy Swint was responsible for Nikki's disappearance.
I was really upset the fact that he took himself out. I wanted him to face the music. I want to be able to look that person in the face and tell them how they destroyed my family. Ask them why they took my sister. I feel like my family deserves at least that opportunity.
Richmond police insist the investigation will continue, but they also understand the consequences of their person of interest's suicide.
The case will stay open until we find out what happened to her. Unfortunately, with Mr. Swint taking his own life, we might never know.
For one man, Nikki's fiancé, investigated by police early on, Swint's death has brought relief. He too believes Swint was responsible for Nikki's disappearance.
His suicide was sort of an answer. I mean, why would someone shoot themselves in the head, if they've got nothing to hide?
Today, Bobby Webster has drawn closer to Nikki's family, particularly to her daughter Peyton.
We text and talk on the phone constantly, and I get a chance to, take her shopping here and there. And that's one person throughout the ordeal I can honestly say still by my side was Peyton.
I still have love for him. He is like a father figure, and I still call him my stepdad. He took me away from what was going on with the adults.
Now 17, Peyton is still hopeful that someday her mother will return.
I still think my mom's out there somewhere. I'm not sure if she's alive or dead, but, until they can prove it to me, she's still alive to me.
For the McCowan family, Nikki lives on in Peyton.
When she smiles, it brightens my day because it's like looking directly at Nikki. And Nikki would be very proud of the young lady she's become.
The family search for Nikki goes on.
I promised her daughter that I would never give up on her mom. I will find out what happened to my sister. And I'm going to keep that promise to Peyton.
Until I find out where she's laying or who has her. Until I find that, I'll probably be in limbo the rest of my life. There's somebody's got to give a damn for all the Nickys out there, and there's so many of them.
Tanya Ryder disappeared on Thursday, September 20th, 2007. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Tanya Ryder's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her. A hardworking woman heads home to catch some sleep after her overnight shift.
As far as I knew, Tanya was just going about her normal day. She would have been getting off work and then heading home.
But she never makes it.
All of a sudden, she's not where she's supposed to be.
She disappeared into thin air, as far as we could tell.
Without a single clue, her husband must search for her, alone.
Not knowing is enough to make you go insane.
Tom is having the battle of his life.
I was waging a one-man battle against overwhelming odds just to even get heard.
To reach the shocking conclusion that turns into a media sensation.
Whoa, what's going on here?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Thursday, September 20th, 2007, is an ordinary autumn day in Bellevue, Washington, just east of Seattle. The day unfolds on schedule for 33-year-old Tanya Ryder.
Tanya actually had two jobs. One of them was at Fred Meyer in the health and beauty aid section as stalker. That's an overnight shift.
She finishes her overnight shift at 9 o'clock that morning. From Bellevue, she will head down Highway 169 to her home in Maple Valley for a few hours of sleep. And later, she will return to Bellevue for her day job, overseeing the fitting room at a department store.
She was a dedicated worker. If she said she would be there 5 minutes early or 15 minutes early, she was there on the dime.
Tanya's husband, 39-year-old Tom Ryder, also works two jobs. By day, he clears land for new housing. By night, he delivers pizza.
We were working insane hours, but we had a goal in sight.
They're building their dream house, overlooking the tranquil Puget Sound.
Well, the idea behind all of this work and all of these hours was to make sure we had enough money to complete the house.
Well, they felt that if they put in a lot of hard work and a lot of long hours, that they could eventually slow down and enjoy the house and each other.
Tanya and Tom have been happily married for 7 years. Like many couples, their personalities are actually quite different.
Tom is very vocal, very jovial, very outspoken. He's a prankster, whereas Tanya is very quiet. She doesn't speak unless she has something to say, and Tom will just talk your ear off.
I'm an outgoing, boisterous idiot. Tanya's the other half of me. She's able to keep me in line.
If you have Tanya here, you have Tom there to balance her. This is the marriage made in heaven.
For now, Tom and Tanya Ryder are living in a house in Maple Valley. Their heavy-duty routine leaves them with little time to relax. They pass through the house at different times and can easily go 3 or 4 days without seeing each other.
We had to schedule a time when our days off matched to actually even say hello. And that's pretty crazy.
On Wednesday evening, Tom and Tanya enjoy a rare moment of togetherness.
She was home that night when I got home, so we actually got to talk a little bit and have a little, family time. I made her laugh, she made me laugh.
Later that night, Tanya works her overnight shift at the grocery store in Bellevue. At 9 a.m. on Thursday morning, Tanya leaves the store and starts to head home.
Well, as far as I knew, Tanya was just going about her normal day. I mean, she would have been getting off work at 9 o'clock, having breakfast, and then heading home.
Little does Tom know, Tanya never makes it home that day. Three days since Tom last saw Tanya, he's on the job, clearing a housing tract in Maple Valley.
The city was requiring the wetlands be cleared of all what they called hostile vegetation, which is like blackberry bushes.
Around 10 a.m., Tom's cell phone rings. It's Tanya's boss at her daytime job in Bellevue.
She tells me that Tanya hasn't showed up to her last 2 shifts. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to get Tanya in trouble. Maybe she just overslept. I'm trying to keep my calm and telling her, I'll try and get a hold of Tanya and have her call you.
Concerned, Tom immediately calls Tanya's cell phone.
I started walking back to my truck and dialing Tanya's phone number. She didn't set up her voicemail, so it goes to the little message that says, the cellular customer you are trying to reach has not set up his voicemail box yet.
The mailbox cannot accept new messages at this time. Please try again later. Goodbye.
She may not answer anyone else's calling in, but she'll answer mine. So now I'm starting to worry.
Tom drives to their home in Maple Valley, thinking that perhaps Tanya is there.
I make it to the door and I go, Tanya! And no answer, so I go and I check the downstairs. I double back and go up the staircase, and we have 3 bedrooms up there, and she's not in any of them.
Tom checks the garage. Tanya's car is not there.
The more I'm checking and not finding her, the more the panic is building inside me.
Desperate to locate Tanya, Tom makes an emergency phone call.
911, what are you reporting?
My wife didn't show up for work last night, and she's not home, and I haven't heard from her in 2 days. Can you just check and see if there are any accidents involved on your Ryder, R-I-D-E-R?
I'm not showing any injury accidents in that area, but I can connect you with State Patrol, and you can check if there are any injury accidents on the freeway.
The 911 operator tells him there are no reports of an accident on the highway either. But this doesn't bring Tom any relief. In a single morning, Tom's world is turned upside down.
So at this point, I start to I'm losing it. I start thinking about what could have happened.
For Tom, the reality of the situation starts to set in. No one has seen Tanya since she left her overnight shift at the grocery store Thursday morning.
Tom realizes, oh my God, she's been gone and unaccounted for in everybody's life for 2 days.
Coming up, the clock is ticking, and Tom is struggling to get police to investigate Tanya's disappearance.
I was furious. I was not going to let them not do their job.
39-year-old Tom Ryder has just learned that his wife Tanya has not reported for work in 48 hours. She's not at home either, and she's not answering her cell phone.
I'm pretty much starting to panic at this point because Tanya will answer my phone calls when I call.
All of a sudden, she's not where she's supposed to be. He knew there was something wrong.
My adrenaline was pumping. I was having trouble breathing right. It's just, where is she?
There is one more place Tom Ryder thinks to check.
I'm headed to her second job, just in case. That's my last safe possibility that's in my brain, is that they've changed her shift and she had to work at her second job.
On the highway to Bellevue, Tom keeps trying her cell phone. There's no answer.
So, of course, his mind starts playing mind games. The what if? Has someone kidnapped her? Is she alive? Is she dead?
Somebody stole her car. Somebody robbed her at gunpoint. She's got amnesia and she's in the hospital and they stole her wallet and have her ID. All these different possibilities are just flooding into my mind.
Nearing Bellevue, Tom calls 911 again. This time, he wants to report his wife missing.
911 connects him with the Bellevue Police Department, and they make arrangements to meet him and interview him to see what's going on with his wife.
Minutes later, Tom arrives at the department store where Tanya works. He meets the store manager, and they start talking before the police arrive. The manager tells Tom that Tanya is due at the store within the hour for her regular shift at 1 o'clock that day. Tom waits anxiously to see if Tanya will show up for work.
My brain is still trying to cling to the safe possibilities. It's still trying to believe that she's going to be here and everything's going to be all right.
1 o'clock passes. No Tanya.
When she had a schedule, she stuck to it. And so Tom knows that when she has not shown up for work, he has a reason to be really alarmed.
For Tom, there is no longer any question about it. Tanya has truly disappeared.
It was painful and scary, and it was like someone had just torn duct tape off of my eyes. I was in a mode that I hope no one ever has to go through.
Soon, responding to Tom's 911 call, a Bellevue police officer arrives at the department store. He questions Tom.
What does your wife look like? When was the last time she was seen? What was she wearing? Have there been any disputes between you?
The officer determines Tanya's last known whereabouts were at her nighttime job. Immediately, they call the grocery store to speak with Tanya's boss, who is able to locate a security video that shows Tanya leaving the store at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 20th. It's the last time anyone sees Tanya Ryder.
The tape showed Tanya leaving, walking into the parking lot, apparently normal. No one was following her.
They do have her leaving at 9 o'clock in the morning, Thursday the 20th, and getting into her car and driving away.
She didn't look stressed, like she was being followed.
Because the tape shows Tanya heading home to Maple Valley in her own car, on her own free will, the officer informs Tom he will have to refile a report with the King County Police. John Urquhart is a sergeant at that precinct.
Bellevue decided she lives in Maple Valley, our jurisdiction. Therefore, the King County Sheriff's Office will have jurisdiction.
Tom immediately heads back to his home in Maple Valley.
I know, based on a conversation I had with the officer, that I won't get referred to the right 911 operator until I get closer to home.
As soon as he crosses the county line, Tom calls 911 from the car. This time, he's connected to a King County emergency operator.
My wife is missing. My wife's name is Tanya Ryder.
He goes through the story again, and he couldn't find any record of her being in an automobile accident, so there had to be some other explanation what had happened to her. And he was quite insistent. Something else is going on here. You need to help me.
Tom urges the King County operator to file a missing persons report for Tanya, but the operator declines to file the report. Before anything else can happen, the operator tells Tom, he must check the local hospitals and jails for Tanya.
The moment that I'm making those phone calls, calling the jails, calling the morgues, calling the hospitals, I'm praying that It's the wrong way, that I'm looking in the wrong direction, but I have to look.
There's no record of Tanya anywhere.
So I call back the 911 operator. She's not in any of your jails. She's not in any of your hospitals. She's not in any of your morgues. She's not at home. My wife is missing.
For a second time, Tom asks the operator to file a missing persons report for Tanya.
Just because she's missed work, did you guys have any arguments?
No.
Discussions? Just problems? Have you checked any of the other family members in the area?
A house in Maple Valley.
Have you contacted any other family members that she may go to?
And talk to her family members.
Again, the operator declines to file the report, insisting that Tom must try contacting Tanya's friends and family members.
History has told us in other cases it's very, very important for family members to be contacted. Oftentimes that'll solve the case very quickly.
I haven't called her family in years. I called each and every one of them.
And they didn't have a close relationship, and they haven't heard from her in months.
Tom calls King County 911 a third time. He knows with each passing minute, Tanya could be in danger. So he pleads with the operator to take the report so the search for Tanya can begin.
He's very, very insistent. He says, I've called the family members, I've called the hospitals, I've called the morgue, I've called the jail. I've done all you've asked me to do.
They're going to have to take a report now. Now it's their turn, is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking now they're going to come on board. Now they're going to start looking for my wife.
But instead, the operator declines to file a missing persons report for a third time. He cites certain criteria that Tanya's disappearance must meet before it becomes an active case.
Is the person suicidal? Are they being treated for a mental health issue? Are they elderly? Is there some sort of suspicious circumstance that surrounds their disappearance?
But Tanya's disappearance does not meet any of them.
Can you send an officer over to at least take the report?
Officers don't take these reports in person. She does not meet criteria to take a missing persons report on. She is an adult. She's not been suicidal. What we're telling you is that she doesn't meet the criteria.
Tomorrow.
Okay, what we're telling you is that she doesn't meet the criteria. Okay, we don't go actively searching for missing people, sir.
Even the checkbooks are here. I'm telling you, something has happened to my wife.
The 911 operator suggests to Tom that Tanya likely left on her own.
She's a normal, adult, working female, and she disappeared, which is her right.
She's over the age of 18. She's an adult. She can go where she wants, and she doesn't have to tell you.
Shocked by the operator's refusal to file a missing persons report, Tom struggles to contain his anger.
You're treating it like, oh, well, this idiot, his wife just left him, and oh, hell with it. How long does she have to be missing before you'll take a report?
There is no set time.
What you're telling me is unless she turns up dead, you're not going to care.
At this point, I am trying very hard to keep an even keel in my voice. If I knew where he was, I would have been down there forcing his hand to write the report.
4 days after she was last seen, no official search for Tanya Ryder is underway. 3 911 calls from Tom Ryder have failed to initiate an investigation, and he fears that the longer it takes to start looking for her, the less likely they will find her alive. If Tanya is in danger, the police need to get involved, and the clock is ticking.
Tom at this point is at a loss for what to do without any help, so he has to take it on himself.
Tom contemplates going to the police station to make his case in person, but he fears that they too will reject his plea to start an investigation. Instead, he decides to take matters into his own hands by involving the media.
I figure I'm gonna force their hand. I figured I'm not gonna let them not look for my wife. I'm gonna call the media and make it loud and messy.
But the news station requires a police-issued case number in order to run a missing person story, to avoid inadvertently reporting false information.
It's a catch-22 because they can't run a story without a case number, and on the other hand, Tom can't get a case number. He has opened every door to obtain an answer, to point him in the right direction, to give him the next step, and all the doors are slammed in his face.
All he can do now is try to search for Tanya on his own. As night falls across the Northwest, Tom Ryder drives up and down the roads of Maple Valley, Washington, looking for his missing wife.
I was just driving back and forth, scanning the edges of the road, looking for any indication that a car had left the roadway.
He's looking everywhere. He's looking in people's windows as he drives by. He's looking for accident scenes. He's looking for grease on the highway.
I lost count on how many times I went back and forth. I was panicking.
Late that night, Tom thinks of one final scenario. Perhaps Tanya has retreated to the site of their future dream house.
Maybe she's just frazzled and she's out at the property trying to relax her nerves. I'm not believing it for 1 second, but there's no way I'm not going to go check.
Tom drives 92 miles to see if Tanya is there. But she is still nowhere to be found.
Hours are ticking by, minutes are ticking by, and Tanya is still missing.
Coming up, Tom fights to get his wife's case activated.
These people aren't helping me. In fact, they're standing in my way. And inside me, something snapped.
"39-year-old Tom Ryder is devastated. His wife Tanya has disappeared.
It's crazy. The man was trying to hold it together as his life is falling apart.
He's also furious. Despite repeated calls to 911, Tom can't get police to launch a missing persons case.
I was waging a one-man battle against overwhelming odds just to even get heard.
But time is of the essence, and Tom knows he needs the police if he has any chance of finding his wife.
I know I can't do it all myself. I know I need their help. The chances of finding her were better with more people looking.
Four days have now passed since Tanya Ryder went missing. Tom makes his fourth call in 48 hours to 911.
Operator 65. Hi, Tom Ryder again.
This time, to Tom's surprise, he gets a different response.
This different operator made a different subjective decision from the standpoint that Tom had done everything else we'd asked him to do, and she's still not home.
I believe that she suddenly met the criteria because they figured out that I wasn't going to go away.
What's going to happen is we're going to list her, and if someone runs her name anywhere in the country, they will know that she is missing, and they'll call.
The King County Police finally agree to take a missing persons report.
And he's really kind of shocked. Wow, the door opened.
The name Tanya Ryder is finally in the system.
And they said, well, we're going to send an officer out to take your statement.
And that was a great relief for Tom. He couldn't relax, but at least he could grab a breath.
5 hours later, a King County police officer arrives at Tom's home in Maple Valley.
He hasn't even gotten out of the car yet, and I'm standing there waiting for him at his door. I tell him the same things that I told the 911 operator. I need your help to find my wife.
Tom invites the officer to search his home.
Yeah, I say, if you'd like to search my house, you don't need a warrant. You can look right now.
Tom wants the police department to know, I want you to do whatever you have to do in the least amount of time to do it in order to find my wife. There's something wrong. I feel like she's in danger.
Although Tom is being very forthcoming, in these cases, the husband often becomes the #1 suspect.
He asked me to wait in the driveway because he wants to search the house without me leading him or anything like that.
We're real interested in kind of looking around and determining, did she pack a bag or personal items missing, wallet, credit cards, money, that sort of thing.
He doesn't see any blood spatter. He doesn't see furniture turned upside down. He doesn't see any indication of dispute.
He noticed the things that I was telling him, that her paychecks were on the banister, her bank card was on the counter.
Nothing was missing from the house, and in fact, some of her credit cards were still there.
The officer tells Tom that a King County sergeant will still have to determine whether or not a detective will take the case.
So again, Tom is kind of 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
But meanwhile, Tanya's disappearance has a case number now, so the media will run the story.
He gets it out on the news to let the public know that his wife is missing.
Bellevue police say a surveillance tape shows the 33-year-old 5'10" blonde woman getting into her car and driving away as normal as can be.
Tom says there is no reason for her to run away, and now he's putting up a $25,000 reward to help find her.
I called every local media outlet at this point. I was going to make sure there was going to be an investigation.
It's the 5th day since Tanya Ryder went missing. After another sleepless night, Tom goes to work.
It's the only thing I knew to keep my mind from going over the endless scenario of possibilities. If I was doing nothing, I was thinking these horrific thoughts.
After seeing all the news coverage, Tom's boss asks his employees to draw up hundreds of flyers. They email copies to as many people as they can.
By 10 o'clock that morning, they had flyers from Canada all the way down to Oregon and all the way over to Utah.
They, of all the people, knew what type of a couple Tom and Tanya Ryder were and how devastated Tom was. So anything that they could do and jump in and help him, they were there.
At King County Police Headquarters, officials finally decide to hand Tanya's case to a detective.
So we didn't find anything that really told us she left voluntarily, nothing that said she didn't leave voluntarily or had been a victim of foul play. So at that point, there certainly was enough questions as to where she was, so the detectives needed to do follow-up work beginning first thing Monday morning.
To start the investigation, the detective needs Tanya's banking information so police can track any recent activity on her accounts.
We asked Tom what kind of credit cards and checking accounts does she have.
They need credit card information. They need bank statements and accounts and PIN numbers and codes.
I told them that we had a joint account and a joint savings account, and that Tanya had a Nordstrom Visa, and that's all she has with her.
Later that day, Tom tries again to reach Tanya. He can't let go of the feeling that she's out there, somewhere.
I decided to try and call her phone again because it's been giving me this weird feeling of knowing if her phone's still alive, maybe she is. And when I called this time, it went straight to the message. It didn't ring at all, which meant the battery died.
Whatever hope Tom has that Tanya is alive evaporates.
There's nothing left that I can do. I've done everything that I can do. And inside me, something snapped. I kind of fell down. I couldn't get up. Can't move.
Just when he's lost all hope, Tom's cell phone rings. It's the King County investigator. With some incredible news, police have tracked activity on one of Tanya's bank accounts.
We're going, whoa, what's going on here? Somebody's using that card.
Coming up, a surprising tip leads police to an unexpected interrogation.
Something's not right with this guy's story. And something's just not right with this guy's story.
39-year-old Tom Ryder is experiencing the single worst trauma of his life. His wife Tanya has disappeared.
I'm feeling hopeless. I'm feeling completely powerless.
But 4 days after Tanya's disappearance, police think they have a break. There is some activity on one of Tanya's bank accounts.
The detective calls Tom and lets him know that there's a ray of hope.
It basically gave me the impression that Tanya was alive, and that she was out there and she was okay.
Tom calls the detective on his wife's case to inquire about the details of the new discovery.
I asked her specifically what account she was monitoring that she saw activity on. She said, I saw activity on Tanya's checking account.
As far as we knew, she had the only access to the account. Therefore, any activity on the account would be through her debit card.
Unfortunately, there is a mix-up with the account information.
I said, that's a joint account. That was me. I put the gas in my truck because I was out looking for it and ran out of cash.
Tom realized it was his purchase off of the card, and it was nothing to do with Tanya. And so he was again devastated.
Amid the confusion, one thing becomes clear. There is no activity on any of the accounts that connect to Tanya Ryder. Which means there are still no leads in the case, no evidence to suggest foul play, and no clues to where Tanya Ryder might be.
There has to be some evidence of where she might be to give us a starting point, and we didn't have that. Again, she disappeared into thin air, as far as we could tell.
Now that the bank records are a dead end, Tom demands police start physically searching for Tanya.
A natural reaction for people is call out search and rescue, call out your helicopter, go look for her.
But police insist that without a hard lead, there's little point beginning a search.
Remember, we've got her leaving the city of Bellevue, driving 20-some miles to Maple Valley. That's a big area. So where do you search for Tanya Ryder? The reality is, you don't, because she could have gone anywhere.
Tom also demands that they check Tanya's cell phone records.
He's also thinking, why can't they get information from the cell phone company?
I knew they had the ability to trace a cell phone's location to within a cell tower's radius.
But legally, the cell phone company can't just give that kind of information to police.
The problem is, people have a right to privacy. People expect that the police are not going to be able to trace their movements unless there's a reason to do so.
In order to obtain the records, the phone company requires a warrant. But King County Police can't get one.
In the state of Washington, to get a search warrant, you have to have probable cause to believe a crime has been committed. And at this point, we did not have probable cause to believe a crime had been committed. We didn't have an inkling or a suspicion that crime had been committed, much less probable cause.
With no other leads in sight, King County detectives continue to pursue Tanya's cell phone records. Meanwhile, Tom is breaking down from the seemingly hopeless investigation.
Tom is beside himself. He's sleep deprived. He can't keep food down, and he starts breaking down. He's wasting away, mentally and physically.
When you're living through it, it is 100% nightmare. It is everything in your world slows down to a crawl. I was losing all control. And the whole time, you cannot take your mind off of the well-being of your loved one.
But the situation is about to get far worse for Tom. Tanya's boss at the grocery store where she was last seen calls police to voice doubts about him.
This is calling from the Bellevue Fred Meyer store because I wanted to get some information for somebody because one of my employees is missing. Something's not right with this guy's story. And I just need to let somebody know that. Something's just not right with this guy's story.
Eight days have now passed since Tanya Ryder disappeared. The recent suspicion raised by Tanya's boss is the only thing police have to go on. So they turn their attention to the husband, a usual suspect in these types of cases. But they have no evidence against Tom Ryder.
We have to eliminate people from being a suspect in cases like this. And certainly the husband is the #1 suspect. Absent some other sort of evidence that might implicate him, what we decided to do was give him a lie detector test, put him on the polygraph, and see how he does.
I get a call from the detective. Can you come in for an interview? No problem. I got nothing to hide. They just wanted to get some facts straight.
Tom heads to the Kent Justice Center, where he sits for a preliminary interview before the polygraph. As the interview progresses, the nature of the questions starts to irritate Tom.
Was your wife all right the last time you saw her? Was your wife unharmed? Did you do anything to anger her? So it's just, did you hurt your wife? Everything except for, did you kill your wife?
Tom gets the feeling police are doubting his innocence.
They were trying to coax a confession out of me. They had made up their minds that I had done something.
All he could think of was, are they waiting for me to stand up and scream, I'm guilty? I murdered her?
I wasn't fully aware of just how rattled I already was. It was like, this is it. They're going to be crucifying me down here.
Aching with fatigue, Tom feels the walls closing in on him.
My wife never laid a hand on her, never raised a finger to her. I haven't done anything. I knew I was at my breaking point.
Coming up, the stunning conclusion to Tanya Ryder's mysterious disappearance.
So we put detectives out looking to see what they could find. I mean, it's a needle in a haystack.
In the span of 1 week, Tom Ryder has gone from a loving husband to a person being questioned about his wife's disappearance. Now, Tanya's boss is raising suspicions about Tom to the police.
Something's not right with this guy's story. And I just need to let somebody know that. Something's just not right with this guy's story.
Since there are no other leads in the case, police ask Tom Ryder to take a polygraph.
He's thinking, these people want to prove me guilty.
They wanted me to rule myself out or convict myself.
While following up on the lead from Tanya's boss, police are still pursuing a warrant so the phone company can release Tanya's cell phone records.
This is something that took time and a tremendous amount of frustration that we couldn't get to those cell phone records.
Finally, there's a break. A sympathetic judge signs the warrant, and police are able to retrieve Tanya's cell phone records. The information they obtain takes the investigation in a completely new direction.
The detectives were able to look at the records and determine which tower was accessed. They were able to narrow that down into essentially a pie-shaped area 3 to 5 miles out in a particular direction.
The latest is that it's actually hitting off the southeast of that tower. We can give you the latitude, longitude of that tower.
Within this area is the highway Tanya Ryder takes on her daily commute.
So now we know she was probably on her way home. So we put detectives out walking down that highway looking to see what they could find. We fan out on each side of the roadway and just start walking down the shoulder. And this is a state highway. There's a lot of traffic, 50,000 cars a day on this roadway. I mean, it's a needle in a haystack.
As detectives are grilling Tom Ryder, police continue with the Maple Valley Fire Department to search desperately for any clues.
It could have been just the phone tossed out of the car, or it could be the whole car, or nothing at all.
At 3:20 p.m., officials make an astonishing discovery.
We found a vehicle a quarter mile south of the south end of Jones Road.
He finds the car down an embankment, off the highway, totally out of sight, but the car's down an embankment about 12 feet, upside down, and Tanya Ryder is hanging upside down, still in that car, 7 days later.
Rescue workers are in shock. They check inside the car to see if Tanya is alive.
170, we got movement.
We got movement. County, I need an aid car, please.
Okay.
This is that missing female, Tanya Ryder, that was on the news. We found her vehicle, and she's still moving inside of it. Oh, my God, this is a car accident. I think a car accident, and she's been trapped for this long.
Okay.
Wow.
Tanya Ryder has been in a terrible car accident and has been trapped 10 feet below the highway. Almost unbelievably, 8 days later, she is still alive.
The car was on its side in a precarious spot, driver's side down, so she was on her side for 8 days hanging from the seatbelt. The airbags had deployed.
We opened the door and made contact with Miss Ryder. She was on her left side, suspended by her seatbelt in her seat, unable to reach anything, and she looked like she was hurting. She was just laying very quiet and just asking for help.
Officers on the scene report the stunning turn of events to King County headquarters, where Tom Ryder is trying to rule himself out as a suspect. They give him the news.
He said, "We found her car." It was at that moment, the moment that I almost collapsed. And I said, "Is she all right?"
Miracle survivor, a woman missing for 8 days, turns up alive, trapped in her car, thanks to her cell phone.
A woman who was missing for more than a week has turned up alive just as police were getting ready to question her husband about her disappearance.
Her seatbelt suspended in her car. Ryder was dehydrated but conscious.
Firefighters carefully removed Tanya from the car. She has been without any food or water for 8 days, and she is suffering many severe injuries.
She was then placed in the back of the medic unit and then airlifted to Harborview Hospital.
Her organs had started shutting down because of lack of water intake. She had broken bones. They thought that she was going to lose her leg. She was in horrible shape.
Doctors tell Tom that in a few more hours, Tanya might not have survived.
My wife is in critical condition and fighting for her life. Because of the way she was pinned, and they're hoping not, but they may have to take one of her legs. The only thing I ask of them is to give her the best chance.
Miraculously, doctors saved Tanya's leg, but her condition remains critical. Hours after the rescue, Tanya Ryder wakes up in the hospital.
The first thing I remember is waking up and seeing a nurse next to me and feeling very thirsty. I wasn't aware of what had happened to my body.
Tom and Tanya's reunion is emotional for both of them.
I didn't really understand everything that was going on, but when I saw Tom, I saw my comfort space. I knew everything was going to be okay.
She recognized me, and I saw tears well up in her eyes. Her expression softened, the tears started to flow, and she knew that I was there. And I love her more than I love my own life. It was a big relief, but it was also absolute pain to see my wife bandaged from head to toe.
Tanya's car was found less than 6 miles from their home in Maple Valley, a fact that haunts Tom to this day.
I drove right past where she was off the road and couldn't see her, but I didn't know it. I drove right by her lots of times. I didn't know it.
In the aftermath of their extraordinary ordeal, Tom struggles to balance gratitude with rage.
She was in that car for 8 days. All I know is no one else should have to go through what she went through. When the simple pinging of a cell phone could have led him to her in an hour.
1 week after Tanya's rescue, the King County Sheriff holds a news conference and apologizes to the Ryders for the limitations of the sheriff's office in this particular case and for the frustrations Tom endured. Today, 3 years after the accident, Tanya and Tom still live in Maple Valley. Their dream house is on hold for now. Tom is working with writer Jan Sidnap on a book about Tanya's remarkable ordeal.
I sure hope that no one else has to go through what we went through. That's our hope with this book.
Tanya still struggles with physical repercussions from her time in the crushed vehicle. She says she retains no memory of the crash or what came after. Instead, she is sustained by the fact that she survived.
I feel that God has a reason to have me here. Definitely a miracle. There's a higher power involved with why I'm alive.
Some people aren't that lucky. Of course I feel lucky. How could I not? I got my wife back.
I just try and take each day and appreciate what I have and move forward with that. Some days it's different than others, and I just take it as it comes.
A devoted New Jersey housewife and mother of 2 inexplicably vanishes in the middle of a routine school day.
Everything appeared the way it would on any other given day.
Her pocketbook with all her personal belongings was in the house, and she was gone.
At first, there seems to be no trace, but it's not long before hidden animosities come to light.
I have never seen
Pat react that way. She was not herself.
And a decade-long police investigation reveals this small town is not as idyllic as it appears.
Burglars do hit homes. It does happen.
His exact words were, "I killed the old girl."
February 13th, 2001. It's a cold afternoon in Bogota, New Jersey, a quiet town just across the George Washington Bridge and seemingly a universe away from the throng of New York City.
Bogota's a small town. It's about 7/10 of a mile. We're about 2 miles outside New York City.
40-year-old Jim Viola has left his 9-to-5 job as an engineer at Honeywell early. As he navigates traffic from Morristown to Bogota, he thinks of his wife, Pat, who's probably at home preparing dinner, as she has every day for the last 14 years of their married life together. But as he walks through the back door of his house, balancing Valentine's Day gifts in his briefcase, he's surprised to discover the burglar alarm has been activated, and Pat's not home.
I was quite shocked because when you open the back door, the first thing you hear is the beeping, that the alarm is set. So I dropped everything that I had in my hand and ran over to the panel because they only give you like 20-30 seconds before the alarm will trip. At the same time, I'm thinking, where is Pat? It was very unusual.
In this household, where routines run like clockwork, something's suddenly amiss.
If you're the type of person who's home every day at 5 o'clock, and for the last 5 years you've been at home at 5 o'clock, and somebody comes to your house at 5:05 and you're not there, they can report you missing.
Pat is the kind of woman whose entire life revolves around the stable comforts of home. Just a few weeks earlier, 42-year-old Pat Viola was beaming as she presented one of her famous homemade birthday cakes on the evening of her son Michael's 10th birthday party.
I don't remember what presents I got, but we had a big cake. Everyone came over, and it was a lot of fun.
When it comes to birthdays and holidays, she wanted to get the perfect gift for you.
At least outwardly, the Viola family has seemed picture perfect since Pat and Jim met in 1982. On the day he interviewed for his current job, Jim noticed the young woman working in the personnel department right away.
I thought she was cute. I liked her right off the bat.
Once they did start dating, it was just meant to be. It was a love story.
The romance blossomed, and Pat and Jim got married in 1986.
The day of Pat's wedding, she was radiant. Her eyes were like jewels.
The Violas quickly have 2 children, a girl and a boy.
Yeah, we just living the dream, I guess you could say.
Pat and Jim assume life will always be this sweet. On the morning of February 13th, 2001, the day before Valentine's Day, life in the Viola household is chugging along on its usual schedule. There's not a single hint of the upheaval that will ensue later that afternoon.
February 13th was an everyday for the Viola family. They were up early, they had to get 2 kids ready for school, and Jim had to go off to work.
I remember seeing Pat that morning. She seemed to be a little bit down, maybe. She wished me luck a couple times, and she just sounded a little sad.
But to Jim, Pat's mood isn't extreme enough to make him worry. Plus, he's focused on a big presentation he has to give at work that day, and he's out the door by 6:30 a.m. 13-year-old Christine and 10-year-old Michael are packed and ready to leave for school by 8:15. Then, Pat prepares to leave herself. Just before 8:30, she bundles up, leaves her house on Chestnut Avenue, and makes her way along the 2 short blocks to her son's elementary school.
Pat had to get ready herself to go in to be the volunteer school librarian at the children's school.
Pat has been working at the library for over 2 years and relishes the opportunity to be around her children during the day.
The library was just like any other day at the library. She went, she did exactly what she was supposed to do.
But while Pat is going about her regular activities, shelving books and processing checkouts, something unusual happens back at home.
Well, at some point during the morning, the house alarm went off. They do have a house alarm, and it went off.
The alarm company follows protocol. They try Pat at the house, Jim at his office, and then Pat's mother, who lives nearby. Pat's mother leaves a worried message for her daughter at home. The alarm company call is also routed through to the Bogota police station.
Our officers responded like we do on every other house alarm. They checked, they looked for the windows, they checked the doors. The officers went, they checked all the areas, nothing appeared to be damaged or bothered, and they called back in service.
Meanwhile, Pat continues working, unaware of the alarm. She has a cell phone, but she rarely uses it, so no one tries to call her at the library. At about 11:40 a.m., a mailman waves to Pat as she walks home. Inside the house, she hears the message from her mother about the alarm and calls her back to reassure her that everything seems fine.
The phone call to her mother was the last time that we could actually document someone had spoken to Pat.
About an hour later, Pat does one last traceable task. According to a report from the security company, she performs a reset on the house alarm at 1:11 p.m.
All alarms have codes, and only certain people would know those codes, so it's not like you could just walk into somebody's house and guess a code and punch it in correctly. If you punch it in wrong, the alarm will go off again.
Because of the tripped alarm that morning, Pat would have needed to reset the system in order to use it again.
So it does prove that she's in the house at 1:11 p.m. But after that, we really don't know what happened.
When Jim Viola walks in the door and realizes his wife Pat is gone, there's an eerie quiet. As Jim surveys the house, the scene begins to look even more bizarre. Pat's coat is gone, but her purse is sitting on the counter. When Jim searches the bag, he's baffled by what she left behind.
Her pocketbook with all her personal belongings, her cell phone, ID, and keys was in the house, and she was gone.
Also on the counter is a single key. It's the key the family uses to bolt the back door, and until now, it's always been lodged in the door's deadbolt. Pat has also failed to take something crucial with her, medication that she must take twice a day.
You're telling yourself this can't be happening. She has to be around somewhere.
Coming up, the Viola family is astounded to discover an unknown side of Pat.
I remember Pat walking in the door here. She was not herself.
Jim Viola has just returned home from work at 4:30 on a bitter cold February day. The house looks to be in its usual pristine order, but his wife of 14 years, Pat, is missing.
There does not appear to be any signs of foul play, nothing knocked over, nothing banged around, nothing broken, nothing turned upside down. Everything appeared the way it would on any other given day.
Except for one thing. Pat's purse with all her personal belongings is still in the house, including medication she takes twice a day for epilepsy. Pat Viola had been diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 12. By 2001, she'd been living with the disease for 30 years, and she knew how to handle it.
But every once in a while, maybe once or twice a year, she would take a seizure.
Pat keeps her condition under control by being vigilant about taking her medication regularly. It's now almost 5. Her next dose is due in a few hours, and if she misses it, she'll be at risk for a seizure. Jim goes to pick up the kids who have been playing at friends' houses. But when he returns, 45 minutes later, Pat's still not home.
I didn't panic just yet. It's possible that she had gone out to the local store to go shopping for Valentine's Day gifts, or maybe even taking the bus to the mall.
Jim pulls out the local bus schedule. He knows she didn't drive anywhere because a few months earlier, her driver's license had been taken from her. In November of 2000, a disturbing event occurred in the Viola house, and it had a powerful ripple effect on the winter that followed.
Michael and I were at a hockey game. My sister was here with Pat, and Pat took a major grand mal seizure. ambulance was called, and she landed in the hospital. She recovered, but it was a pretty bad seizure.
The seizure was so severe that her doctor recommended her driver's license be suspended for 3 months.
When Pat lost her driving privilege, it was a major downer for her.
Throughout the Christmas holidays, Pat can't drive herself to the mall and enjoy the simple pleasure of buying presents for her kids. She knew she could ask a friend to drive her, but she hated to rely on someone else to do something she felt she should have been able to do herself.
She didn't like her independence taken away from her. It frightened her.
But in January, after 2 months with no more seizures, Pat holds out hope that her license will be restored at her next doctor's visit. One week before Pat Viola vanishes, she goes for a follow-up appointment with the doctor, where she receives disappointing news.
They took another blood test. The doctor said, the blood test looks pretty good, but we would like you to go another 3 months without driving. That's like a shot to the stomach.
She was so active with the kids, taking them to sports, taking them to scouts. Part of her ability to take care of them and do things for them was stripped, which could definitely play with someone's psyche.
But the suspended license isn't the only stress in Pat's life that winter.
Several family crises were occurring, one right after the other. Jim's mom took ill, and it was extremely difficult raising 2 children, going back and forth to the hospital, and maintaining regular household chores.
Adding more tension to the mix, Jim's sister Donna recently moved in with the family after a rough breakup with her boyfriend.
It was actually Pat that mentioned to Donna, you know, if you want to stay with us until you're on your feet, no problem.
But as the winter wears on, it becomes tiresome for Pat to take care of yet another person.
Donna smoked, and she used to smoke in the house. After Donna would leave to go off to work, Pat would go downstairs and vacuum up and make it smell real nice again. And I guess this was a nuisance.
On February 12, 2001, Pat is cleaning up Donna's bedroom and spots something maddening. Cigarette burn marks on the guest bedspread.
Pat was very worried about this. Well, you don't want to have the house burned down.
Pat agrees to talk to Donna about the burns the next morning, as there is no time to discuss the issue that night. The whole family is expected in Brooklyn at a party thrown by good family friend Toinette Fazio Markowitz. Pat and Toinette had been the best of friends from just about the moment they met on a double date with their husbands.
They were very tight. I guess you could say they loved each other like sisters.
When you find somebody that's a friend to you 24 hours a day, no matter what, that to me is a sister. And that's what it's all about.
On February 12th, at her home in Brooklyn, Toinette receives a disturbing sign that something is very wrong with her best friend.
I remember Pat walking in the door here. She looked so pretty. Makeup was perfection, but she was not herself.
Upon entering the party, Pat tells Toinette she needs to speak to her urgently in another room. Away from all the party guests, Pat begins crying and says something is wrong, but it's too complex to go into now.
She asked me please not to go away on vacation for President's Week with the plans that I had. She asked me instead if she and I could go so we could talk, that she needed to take care of something.
Toinette's shocked, but she promises to plan a getaway with Pat, anywhere she wants to go. Then, Pat says something that sends Toinette reeling. She asks her to please look after the kids, no matter what happens.
At that time, I cried into her, and she just said to me, I can't discuss it now. But it's important enough that I need you to be there to listen to me. And I could tell by her voice that it was important.
Shaken, Toinette cancels her vacation that very night. Thrown by the cryptic conversation, she calls Pat early the next morning to follow up. She's surprised to hear Pat brush off their talk from the night before and change the subject to Valentine's Day presents.
She sounded tired on the phone and a little bit like hectic. But besides for that, okay.
But when she gets off the phone, Pat displays a side of herself that no one has ever seen before. Pat storms downstairs and confronts Donna about smoking in the house.
Pat came down the steps and she seemed to be very angry and yelling at Donna. And Donna was very shocked and bordering on tears because this was not Pat. It was out of character. I don't think I've ever seen her raise her voice at all, to anybody.
Donna described her like a raving maniac. I have never seen Pat react that way.
Were cigarette burns really enough to cause such an outburst? And what was it that she so desperately needed to tell her best friend? Coming up, the police embark on an urgent hunt for any trace of Pat.
If the person is in some type of distress, all those minutes and hours really count.
It's February 13th, 2001. Mother of two, Pat Viola, normally a creature of habit, has been missing for several hours. Night's descended on her home in Bogota, New Jersey, and her husband Jim is growing alarmed.
As the night goes along and you don't get any answers, and obviously, you're getting extremely worried.
Jim has called every friend and relative he could think of in search of Pat. And now he's facing heartbreaking questions from his two kids.
Around 11 o'clock, I turned to my dad before I went to bed, and I asked him, where's Mom? Where's she sleeping tonight? Is she okay? And he really didn't have an answer. And that was very upsetting.
That night was certainly a rough night. When you got to put your kids to bed and then their mom isn't home, it was a tough one.
At 11:58 p.m., Jim Viola calls the Bogota police and reports his wife missing. Two officers come out that night and take an official missing persons report. The next morning, the report lands on the desk of Captain James Sepp. Captain Sepp starts by examining the known factors. Pat was home at 1:11 p.m.
We can confirm she was in the house because the alarm was reset. 4:30 p.m. is when Jim Viola comes home, and she wasn't home.
So Sepp is faced with a question. How did Pat leave the house between 1:11 and 4:30 p.m. if she didn't drive?
We actually stopped all the buses in the area. We talked to the bus drivers. We spoke to the people that got on the bus just to see if any of them recognized her.
The police then checked the call logs of every taxi company in town.
This area, you're not allowed to drive a cab and just pick people up off the street. There's no hailing cabs in this area, so it wouldn't be like a random cab just came by and she hailed it and jumped into the cab.
They go door to door, asking neighbors if anyone saw Pat Viola leave the house on foot.
We also called down to the Port Authority police, and we asked them to check logs to see if anybody with her name got into a plane. All the efforts turned nothing.
Within hours, the police investigation shifts focus from how Pat left the house to where she could be now.
As time goes by, as we start putting the hours behind us, we definitely try to ramp up our efforts, because if the person is in some type of distress, the harder we look and the faster we look, the better off we are.
The sheriff's department offers a police dog to search the railroad tracks and along the banks of the local river.
Because we might actually find somebody laying on the side of a road in a ditch, and if they're clinging to life, all those minutes and hours really count. We have to make sure that we look under every stone.
The search for Pat Viola has been ongoing locally for 3 grueling days. And now, the police need to branch out.
After a certain point in time, we have to start broadening our investigation. And anytime that you broaden your investigation, you're going to have to look in places where you might not ordinarily want to look at.
The Bogota police organize an aerial search to cover more ground.
We had a helicopter up in the air, and they had a special device that checks for heat. It scans the area, And if there's a body laying somewhere in brush, it'll see that there's heat in the middle of an area.
After the aerial search reveals nothing, Captain Sepp examines clues regarding Pat's mental state at the time of her disappearance. When he hears about the argument with Donna and the conversation with Toinette, he considers a grim possibility.
We did take a look at the suicide angle, and we found information that very well may fit into the pattern of someone who'd commit suicide.
The George Washington Bridge, which spans the Hudson River, is just a few miles away. The bridge has a notorious reputation for attracting people who are suicidal, but Sepp quickly rules it out.
No one in that time frame had jumped off the bridge, and if someone did jump off the bridge, they would have recovered the body from the river, and that didn't happen. However, if you go a little bit further north on the Palisade Interstate Parkway, there's an area commonly called the Cliffs. What you see is what appears to be a nice sheer rock face wall.
The rock wall is choked with undergrowth, and it often takes years to recover the bodies of those who've jumped there.
There's trees, there's a forest down there, and the trees actually kind of grow backwards in towards the land.
But this potential suicide location doesn't add up either. Although these cliffs are just 5 miles from her home, Pat had no way to get there. She didn't drive, and the police investigation shows she never called for a cab. What's more, everyone who knows how devoted Pat is to her family says the notion that she would commit suicide is preposterous.
There's only one answer to the question. You know the feeling when you give birth to your child and you hold the baby for the first time? She was always there for the children. She's not the type of person to walk away. It's just impossible for her to do such a horrible thing.
Meanwhile, back on Chestnut Avenue, Pat's kids have no choice but to continue with their daily lives.
I went to school. I couldn't really concentrate in school because that's what I was thinking about, like where she was and where she was sleeping.
The first week that my mom disappeared, it was like a nightmare. Your worst dream is your mom, and she's not here, and I'm only 10 years old. And it was just hard to comprehend and understand what happened.
Desperate for any lead, Captain Sepp begins to examine the case for signs of foul play.
With missing person cases, we always want to talk to the person who reported them missing. There's somebody that has their system and